everyone on this beautiful, beautiful Friday morning. And we could not start today without saying, Go Lions! Doesn't take much to make us happy. We're 1-0, and that's all right. We hope to make that 10-0 at least by the time the year is over. So wonderful Lions game last night. I am Wayne County Commission Chairwoman Alisha Bell, and I'd like to welcome you to Wayne County and our Tri-County Summit. So wonderful to see so many of you today. This is something that we've endeavored upon for the last 3 years now. The Tri-County Summit did start in the early 90s, mid-90s, took a little hiatus, and then myself, Chair Brown, Chair Woodward from Macomb and Oakland County, we decided that we have so much in common and we don't have borders when it comes to water, when it comes to broadband, when it comes to regional cooperation. So we need to be the leaders to make sure that we drive Michigan and drive southeastern Michigan forward and by working together. So I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. We've had several wonderful previous conferences, topics like broadband, water, road, but what we're going to speak on today is something that is near and dear to all of us, is behavioral health. We know how behavioral health is impacting all of our communities, our young people, our adults, and I'm so proud of the panel that we have for us today. And then we're also going to talk a little bit more about broadband. We're conducting a survey to make sure that all of us and all of our constituents have access to the internet. Hard to believe that some of our rural areas and some of our inner cities still do not have great access to the internet. So there's a survey that the 3 counties are working on to make sure that we see what the needs are so that we can make sure that we're deploying the resources to address those needs. This is something spectacular to be here, this beautiful Grosse Pointe War Memorial. If you've never been here before, you see how beautiful it is. They've done some renovations. So we're just happy to be here. And during break time, you'll have an opportunity to go down and look at the beautiful river and the beautiful view that this wonderful location has for us. At this time, I'm going to make sure that we have some words from our Senator, Gary Peters. Unfortunately, he is not here, but he did send in a video welcoming everyone to this event. Gary Peters has been an asset and has been an ally to all of us throughout Michigan and throughout all of our counties. So he was so excited to be able to bring greetings and welcome everyone to this very important Tri-County Summit. So we do have a 2-minute video that I'd like to share, and if it is ready.
Hello, I'm U.S. Senator Gary Peters, and welcome to the 2023 Tri-County Summit. While I wish I could join you in person again this year, I want to take a moment just to thank all of you for your steadfast leadership in the Tri-County area. And please know that I'm laser focused on delivering on the issues important to you and to your communities. We're making significant progress thanks to our work together. We enacted the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is providing Michigan with urgently needed resources that are helping repair our roads and bridges, expand access to high-speed internet, invest in infrastructure that can withstand extreme weather, and make our energy grid more resilient. We passed tax cuts in the Inflation Reduction Act to lower energy costs for Michigan households and invest in increasingly clean energy production and domestic manufacturing. And we're providing long overdue resources to bolster mental health care through the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. I'll continue to partner with you and work in a bipartisan way in the Senate to deliver the federal resources you need to make your communities better places to live, to work, and to raise a family. There's still more for us to get done, and I know that we will continue to move forward together.
Again, we'd like to thank Senator Gary Peters for those words and for welcoming us to this summit. As I spoke on earlier about things that we're going to discuss today, as we talk about behavioral health, we're also going to talk about electric vehicles and the EV grid and how charging stations are going to be so important to our future. The plan is to have majority EV vehicles by 2030, 2035. We're going to work on that, but how is that going to impact our counties? I'll talk louder. How is that going to impact our counties? We have to make sure that we have charging stations. We have to make sure that we are prepared with the infrastructure that it's going to take. So we're going to have two very exciting panels today to discuss that. What we've learned from the last 2 years. What we've learned from the last 2 years is that although we've had great conversation, great panels, we know that after about 3 or 4 hours, our mind can get a little worrisome. So we're going to stop after lunch, but we do have two very impactful panels this morning. We'll have lunch, and then we'll allow time for everyone to mix and mingle. So again, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I would be remiss if I didn't at this time make sure that I acknowledge the people who voted me chair of the Wayne County Commission. My colleagues who are here today, if you could please stand. Commissioner Irma Clark Coleman, Commissioner Martha G. Scott, Commissioner Melissa Dow, Commissioner Karen Clemente, Commissioner Terry Renke, Commissioner Al Hayes. And then we're also joined by County Clerk Kathy Garrett. Thank you, Clerk Garrett, for being here. And from our County Executive, Warren Evans, team, and McCory. Thank you all so much for being here from Wayne County. The Wayne County team welcomes and thank you for being here. At this time, I will turn it over to Chairman Don Brown of Macomb County. Come on up, Don.
Thank you, Chair Bell. It's always great to be in Wayne County, and good to see everyone on this beautiful morning at this beautiful location. How about this for a location for a summit, eh? On a serious note, I'd like us all pause for a moment and give thanks for the fact that our Detroit Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs last night. We're not used to this type of a start of a season, and it's going to make our fall a little bit better, I think. And, so we'll pray for continued blessings on them and our whole city. So we appreciate that. But yes, we're here, as Chair Bell indicated, the collaboration of all of our three counties is what we're the example of good government. We're what people want and expect. All three counties facing common problems, sharing their resources and ideas, our connections, our contacts, with not only our local contacts, but with our congressional delegations, Senator Peters, Senator Stabenow, our whole congressional delegation, all pulling together to solve common problems. We all share them, and doesn't make any sense for us to be each spinning our wheels separately, but let's bring them together and do the right thing and get more efficient, effective messaging as well as results from our efforts. And we're really glad to have that. You know, today we're going to have a couple panels talking about behavioral mental health. I mean, unfortunately, with all the violence that we've seen in our society, mental health issues have risen to the top and saying this is an area that our country has missed. We haven't focused enough on it. And we're going to be talking about behavioral mental health with our jail administrators and talk about youth mental health issues and what can be done from a county standpoint, working with our local partners to help focus on that area and reduce the many issues that come from mental health issues affecting our youth. After COVID, we realized that had a real negative impact on our youth. We're pulling out of COVID now, but the results of that is still feeling the effects. So what can we as county officials do to help foster a better approach to youth mental health? Regarding behavioral health in our jail systems, you know, Macomb County just initiated, we're going to be spending $237 million building out our jail so we have more capacity, not for more prisoners, but for more programming to help with mental health issues and to divert people away from the jail and give them the help they need so that they can become productive citizens for the society and not be a burden to the taxpayers and end up back in our jails. And those are things that we need to address, and that's a common response, and we all share that. Wayne County's got a big initiative, so does Oakland County on approaching these issues. But we've all got different ideas, but we can pull our ideas, and then once we get our ideas set, we go to our friends in the state and the federal level to find out, say, listen, this is what we're doing here in Michigan. Bring some resources to bear so that we can help fund and be a model for the rest of the country. I was at a NACO conference this summer, and there was a lot of interest from the administration and from other leaders from across the country what we're trying to do in Southeast Michigan. Hearing about all three of our counties collaborating together, the focus on issues that they're focused on, at the national conference. And so we're leaders, and all of you are leaders in your own counties by coming here and learning and hearing what needs to be done, and then going back and spreading the ideas that we pick up here and implement them for the good of all of our people in our counties. So with that, I'd like to bring up Dave Woodward, Chair of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. He's friend and colleague with us and Alisha Bell, and come on up, Dave.
All right. Give him a nod. So good morning. Good morning. I mean, this is truly an exciting opportunity for our Tri-County area to come together, to strategize, to plan, to be visionary thinkers in tackling the problems of the day. I mean, when you think about it, each of our individual counties has a population and some states across this country. As a region, we are a powerhouse of talent, communities, ingenuity, entrepreneurialism, and everything. And to be able to come together, I can attest, and Commissioners, Chairs Bell and Raaen and I talk on a regular basis. Oakland County, from a governing body perspective, is working better together than I can remember in my 20 years involvement in county government. And that's a testament to everyone in this room, committing here, and the leadership of both Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne County. So I want to give an applause to that, because that is what's going to be required to tackle some of these big problems. And we all know, those who've been involved in county government, it's not the government that gets the attention of the national media all the time, or even the local media all the time, but it is definitely the place that things get done. It is the things that states rely on to be able to bring, to give us resources to execute on planned programs and figure out how to do it. I mean, once we have the resources. It is the place in which we have firsthand knowledge of the impact of lack of action, or what's possible with more action to improve the lives of people. And that's why we're all here involved in public service. And we have an incredible record to look at. The topics today are big. They are, in some cases, so large that a less fearless group of people might throw their hands up, because it's going to take incredible amount of resources. It's going to take levels of collaboration and rethinking the way we do things to a level that we've never done before. But there is no doubt in my mind that not only do we have the talent, not only in this room, but the talent in this region to be able to tackle these, but we have the fortitude and the commitment to want to make it happen. That together we can tackle these big problems. And I think over the course of the day, we're going to be talking about the opportunities that are out there, to learn from each other, to replicate what's working, and give a runway to our colleagues to figure out how to build on those successes. And so one of the things, and we talked about the topics that we're talking about today, broadband, as someone, when I first got into county government, I was the young kid on the block. Maybe I would say the more tech-forward person. During this pandemic, we realize how essential having access to digital technology, access to the internet, what the power of that could be, and also unmasked when those don't have those tools and resources, how far they fall behind. The stories, and even in my county, and I mean, we are one of the most tech forward-thinking counties in the country, the stories of children that couldn't actually engage in schools because of access to internet in their rural areas around the county. Areas in which they had to gather in the parking lots of grocery stores just to try to tap into internet service so that they could actually participate in class. It is heartfelt. It doesn't have to be that way. We have the resources as a state, more than nearly 50% of the population in this area. We have the duty and the responsibility to take action. And so I want to applaud this group of people, a group of county leaders that came together back in the 2002 Tri-County 2022 Tri-County Summit that started working together. Commissioners from all of our counties that worked on that. And so if you were part of the broadband subcommittee of the last Tri-County Summit, please stand. I know there's some people in here. I know Commissioner Macomb, Commissioner Doeh, Commissioner Van Sickle. Hey, these are the individuals, these are the individuals that, I mean, added additional time, took additional hours out of their day to figure out how can we tackle this giant problem together. And one of the things that came out of that, not only seeking resources to really get our handle around this, but to embark in frankly, a conversation with real people about what is the state of our broadband access. What's the state of our digital reach in terms of access, speed, and all those things. There is no reason why Metro Detroit, that put America on wheels, cannot have the fastest internet service in the world and competes with China, Taiwan, and all these other areas. Can we give that up? Are we there? We can do that. And so we have been embarking, and you see a lot of the promotional materials. I know all the commissioners in the region have been putting out, passing out print materials through social media, paper media, yard signs, and we'll go old school if we have to be able to collect the data and ask people to test their speed and access, because thanks to our congressional delegation and Senator Peters made mention of it, that we have an access to unprecedented resources to advance and build out the infrastructure necessary to get fast, reliable, affordable internet to every single corner of our region and our state for that matter. And it's going to start here in Metro Detroit in the Tri-County Summit, and the leadership here is going to be dedicated to doing that. And so please continue to spread the word, to ask people to get that, to fill out that survey, to be able to test those speeds, because that's the information we're going to use to be able to make the case that we need every single cent that's available and out there as a result of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and other federal funding to make progress in that space. We couldn't do this without the leadership of a partner that many of you all know because you've all been participating with it, and you've been part of the webinars, the launch of this work and everything. And so we've got Greene Hutchings, who's the Michigan Moonshot Program Manager. She leads Michigan Moonshot, which is this initiative of Merit Network, an independent nonprofit that's working with the state of Michigan to tackle these problems. And her leadership and her team has been incredibly helpful, working with all of our county staffs, working with all our county commissioners to bring the information that will make the case of why we need these resources to improve internet access across this region. And so without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Greene Hutchings to address us and give an update on the overall program.
All right, now I have a lavalier on, so I want to make sure. Oh, great. Okay. Oh. Okay. Are people going to be able to hear me well on this one? No, should I use this one instead? It is on. All right, I'll just use this one. It's fine. But I do move a bit. So thank you very much, Chair Woodward, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Greene Hutchings. I'm the Michigan Moonshot Program Manager, and I'd like to give you an update on where we are with the Tri-County Broadband Survey. Make sure you see all. Good. All right, so things we're going to cover today. I want to just quickly talk to you about a buzzword that you're going to hear more and more about in the next year or so, digital equity, and what does that mean? We're going to talk a little bit also about how the survey can help the Tri-County area prepare for both the broadband funding that is coming, but also some digital equity funding that's coming down the pike. And we're going to talk about how you can help us achieve what our goals are for this project. So let's get started. So we want to zoom out just a little bit and start by talking about digital equity. It is a larger context in which broadband access resides. So traditionally, we've talked about digital equity as being a sort of triangle, right? So the first piece, of course, is internet access. If you don't have internet access, the other pieces aren't much good. But also you need a device that can attach to the internet, a networked device. You need to have the skills that are necessary to know how to use that device, navigate the internet, and also connect with the internet. So this has been a definition that we've used for a long time, but you can imagine that over time a more nuanced definition of digital equity has come into the picture. So here's a more modern definition that we're using, especially among academics today. You'll see that it's talking about a broader landscape, the various factors that impact the ability of residents to access devices, to access the internet, to acquire the skills and the comfort and the security that they need to participate in online community. So I just want to direct you quickly to a website. You'll see a URL at the bottom of this slide here. We've collated a variety of helpful resources related to that greater context of digital equity on this page. Also on that webpage, you'll find a link to our Digital Opportunities Compass. Similar to the survey, in a way that you can assess the current state and look forward to what your goals are for the future, the Digital Opportunities Compass helps to establish some metrics to track the current state of digital equity and your progress toward your goals. So, but let's dig in a little further. Today we're here specifically talking about internet access. So, what is needed to expand access to the internet? Well, at this point, the Michigan Moonshot has partnered with communities to offer the survey to over 50% of the communities in this state. And I can tell you that overwhelmingly, the number one reason folks who do not have internet access, the number one reason they tell us that they don't have it is because it is simply not available at their location. The infrastructure that would bring that service to their home does not exist. That is number one reason. And so you can understand, I know all of you from your work, that when we're talking about infrastructure projects, we're talking about a longer term, multi-year project that involves planning and building and running the infrastructure. So let's drill down a little bit into exactly what are the steps that are involved in doing a broadband expansion project. So on this yellow slide here, you'll see that we have 8 steps. And I'd like to congratulate the folks in this room because the 3 counties are far ahead of the majority of counties. Less than half of the counties in the state have established a specific goal for broadband, and even fewer have conducted surveys to understand the current state that their residents are experiencing regarding access. So you are, not surprisingly, a leader in the state. So you'll see that we are at step 2 here. The red arrow says you are here. And we are in the middle of our survey. We're going to talk a little bit further today about where we're at with the survey. But I wanted to put that all in context, a larger context of where are we going with this and what are those next steps. So step number 3 in this process is really a decision point. It is a point where, as a region, you decide how engaged do we want to be in the solution? Do we want to have more of a direct role and be able to say, we want to make sure these areas get service, or these people have something that's affordable? Or are you going to take a little bit less interactive role and just try to encourage something, perhaps through, say, an incentive program? There are many options on this path, and I really want to emphasize that oftentimes when you're speaking with other consultant groups, they might only present 1 or 2 options, but I'd just like to encourage you to know that there are probably a dozen different ways that communities can approach solving this problem, and I encourage you to keep your options open. So once those decisions are made in step 3, steps 4 through 8 will more or less be determined by what those decisions are in step 3. That may be something that you want to take a lead on your own, or it might be something perhaps you want to consider public-private partnerships. Maybe you put out an RFP for a partner, and they help you go through the following steps. I'd also like to highlight step number 5, where that aqua-colored arrow is. In the next 12 months, there is some significant funding that's going to become available. And I want to kind of zoom in on that because I think it'll give you a sense of the urgency that we have to continue the momentum that you've begun to continue along this path. So let's talk about funding. So on this timeline, and I realize that probably folks in the back row can't quite see, but it is a one-year timeline starting today. So within the next 12 months, there are 2 significant federal programs that will have application windows open. You will notice that there are some question marks on here because we don't have exact dates for when these application windows will open. They haven't been published yet. So these dates that are on here are based on some information we have from very reliable sources, but again, they're not the exact dates of those windows. So I'm actually going to start at the end of this timeline. Our best guess at this point is that sometime next fall, that the Digital Equity Act competitive grant program will open. And this, remember we talked about that triangle and that larger context of digital equity, is something that can be applied for projects that are going to address specific barriers and challenges that residents have when they want to participate in the online community. So it might be something like affordability. It might be something like skills programs. It might be something like helping elderly residents understand how to protect themselves and their identity when they're online. So there's a variety of projects that might be appropriate, and the state of Michigan is actually encouraging people to think of digital equity hand in hand as we think about expanding access to the internet, also thinking about those wraparound needs that will come along with it. So that's the Digital Equity Act. Moving backwards along the timeline, then you'll see the BEAD program, the sub-grant program, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, but you can think of this as infrastructure funding. So we have it on pretty good authority that early next summer that the application window will open for this. The state of Michigan has received an allocation of $1.59 billion to administer a sub-grant program that will be open to internet service providers, but also public-private partnerships. So local governments that would like to get involved and be more engaged in the solution can also apply for this, as well as other kinds of organizations. There is another item on this timeline that I want you to be aware of, and it is that state map challenge. It's starting in January. It is a 90-day period in which the state of Michigan will present a map saying, these are all of the locations across the whole state that we believe could be serviced by internet, and what we think the current state is. Do we think that they have any internet? Do we think they have some serviceable but not great internet, or do we think they have great internet? And then there will be a 90-day period in which local governments and nonprofits can challenge that information that's in the map. At the end of this period, the ultimate outcome is those locations that are determined to be totally unserved, or what we call underserved, they have some internet but it's not great, they will be eligible for funding under that BEAD program, the one that has $1.59 billion. So it's an important process to participate in. I know that the project teams that we are meeting with weekly in each county, they're well aware of this. We've been keeping them posted, and they are they're keeping track of this and helping to be prepared. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware too is that we're eagerly awaiting for the state broadband office, MIHI, to let us know what the acceptable evidence is in this challenge. So when we go to say, I know that you think that these homes in this area have great internet service, but let me tell you, we know that they don't. We're waiting to find out exactly what that acceptable evidence is. So you're probably wondering, well, is the survey going to provide that evidence? Let's talk about what the survey is going to provide for certain. When we're thinking about digital equity, we are, right now in the survey, asking folks who are served, people who have some service, and maybe it's decent, we're asking them about any challenges they have. Like, do they have frequent interruptions of service? Are they in the middle of a Zoom call and it drops? How do they feel about the value? Are they getting what they paid for? We are also asking folks who are unserved today to help us understand what the barriers are that prevent them from accessing the internet. Those will both be valuable and will form any planning you want to do around addressing key issues in the Tri-County area. Following on to broadband, we are asking through our speed test, which is offered at the very end of the survey, we are discovering what the actual speed is that residents are experiencing. So that is some hard data that we're gathering. And we're also identifying which homes just have service that's so slow that they're actually considered unserved. Both of those will be valuable in broadband planning. So you might be wondering, well, how is the survey going? All right, what you can see on this map is our dashboard. We look at, the project team looks at this dashboard every week when we meet. And on here you'll see that there are some very large dots. And if you were able to look really close, you'd see there are also some tinier dots on the map as well. Those large dots are a conglomeration of multiple locations that have responded to the survey and speed test. So there might be, in one of those dots, there might be 10 homes, there might be 50 homes, but they're we average together their internet speeds so that we can see what's going on. The smaller dots represent a fewer number of homes. So right now, what we're looking at is 3 different colors on the map. So we see gold. Let's call that the gold standard. That means these folks are receiving at least 100 megabits per second down. That's the threshold that the BEAD program calls served. So those folks are according to their speed test, getting a modern definition of high-speed internet. The folks with light blue, I like to say they're a little bit sad, because while they are receiving what the federal government calls high-speed internet, which is 25 megabits per second down, they are nowhere near that BEAD threshold of 100 megabits per second down. Finally, there's some dark blue dots, not too many on the map. Those folks do not have what we consider high-speed internet. So they either have no internet at all, or they may have speeds so slow at their house that even by federal standards, they are considered to be unserved. So you'll see that right now we have just over 3,800 responses as of Tuesday morning. And interestingly, 72% are what we consider underserved. So 72% are those light blue colors. They're not meeting the BEAD standard for high-speed internet. Now that doesn't mean they aren't subscribed to the high-speed internet. I suspect, and we will find out when we look at the survey results in context of the speed test, I suspect many of them probably subscribe to faster internet, but are not receiving that. So we'll be looking forward to assessing the data together at the end of the project, and it'll be, as we mentioned, quite useful. I would like to just encourage you all today to feel a little sense of competition. So we also administered this survey in Lapeer County recently. We got 3,550 responses in that one county. Just over a year ago, we administered the survey in Livingston County. We got 7,800 survey responses. So right now we're hovering just under 4,000 for the Tri-County area, and I am asking for your help today to get those numbers up, increase awareness, and increase participation. We'll talk in a few slides about how you can do that. First, I want to zoom out and look at the big picture ask for you all today. Not just at a survey level and not just at that internet access level, but at that greater context of digital equity. What can you as local leaders do to drive forward? Well, number But secondly, I really encourage you to get engaged with the state broadband office. So the state of Michigan commissioned an audit of existing broadband infrastructure over a year ago, and they chose to exclude Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties from that effort. In January, when the state challenge process begins, the other counties in Michigan will have a leg up because they will have more data that they can use to look at and challenge locations on that map. And as a reminder, it's that map that determines how much BEAD funding is available for your area. So I encourage you to get involved with that. Merit is hosting a monthly meeting of counties that are preparing for that challenge. It's an open meeting, everyone's welcome to attend, and yes, your survey project team folks are well aware of it and they are engaged, but just wanted to make you aware that that's happening. In addition, Merit is looking to hedge our bets because we don't yet know what the state broadband office is going to consider acceptable evidence in these challenges in January. So Merit is exploring developing a platform that will meet state and federal specifications for this evidence. And we are going to keep you posted as these things develop. We're hoping within the next month or so that the state of Michigan will inform us what that evidence is, and we intend to do everything in our power to help the counties that we're working with be prepared for that challenge. All right, so let's talk about what you can do right now. Number one, I'm asking everyone here to do a personal reach out. You probably have in your phone memory or on speed dial, maybe it's your local school superintendent. Maybe the director of your local library lives in your neighborhood. Maybe you attend or have a contact at a large house of worship. Please help us get the word out by reaching out personally to someone and asking them to help us promote this survey. We have a variety of materials that we are ready to drop ship anywhere. We have yard signs, we have bookmarks, we have flyers. So we're happy to send material anywhere, but we, of course, if the library just gets 1,000 bookmarks, they're going to throw them in the trash. So we're asking for your help to reach out to at least one person in your community and help us work with them to get the word out. Also, on your way out today, we have yard signs. I ask that you would grab one and put it in a notable place. We have a variety of materials on our website, which is at the bottom of the slide, where you can get other materials like social media posts, articles for your newsletter, and such. I know we're short on time. I just really want to emphasize that this is our one ask today, is please help us increase awareness of this survey by connecting us with your community. All right, thank you everyone for your time. I imagine we don't have a lot of time for questions, but I'm here today. I have my two colleagues, please stand up. Jeff Weinberg and Justin Campbell. We are going to be here all day. Feel free to come grab us during one of the breaks or after the adjournment. We're happy to talk to you about the survey or next steps.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Penny Looms. I'm an Oakland County Commissioner. I'm one of 19 commissioners, and Oakland County is well represented today. So I would ask that my Oakland County Commissioners stand up so we can see how well represented we are. We have Commissioner Nelson, our Vice Chair Gershenson, Commissioner Macomb, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Raaen, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Whiteberg, Commissioner Spiz, and our Chair Woodward. So thank you. With 19 commissioners, we may have 19 different opinions, but we were able to all come together to determine that mental health or good mental health in our communities is important for each of us. And because we are not isolated in Oakland County, why not include Macomb and Wayne County in there? So we were able to form a mental health study group that was made up of 2 commissioners each from Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne counties. Members of the group are, and would you stand for a moment, our Wayne County Commissioner Melissa Doeh, who is our co-chair, Wayne County Commissioner Kara Clement, Oakland County Commissioner Ajay Raaen, Macomb County Commissioner Sylvia Grott, and Macomb County Commissioner Sarah Lucido. So thank you. Over the last several months, the study group met to discuss common concerns within the topic of community mental health issues. It's a very broad topic, so we decided to focus on 2 areas. One is behavioral health and our youth, and the next is behavioral health and justice systems. And I would like to think I had some sway in that. I am a social worker and I work with children and families, so that is important and near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to introduce the next segment. Part 1 is a presentation from Nicole Faulds and David Joseph from Macomb County. Nicole is the 16th Circuit Court Juvenile Court Administrator. She's been in court leadership for 22 years. She's an incredible advocate for youth and has greatly expanded therapeutic programming and youth-focused rehabilitation. David is a Juvenile Division Program Director for the 16th District Court. He has more than 30 years of experience working with court-involved youth and families. Together, Nicole and David have become agents of change to help youth obtain the resources needed to take control of their lives. Their efforts have reduced the need for out-of-home placements and increased the number of successful interventions. So please welcome Nicole and David. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you all for having us here today. All right, I can't see the presentation, but here we go. I want to talk a little bit about, I want to be able to see my, all right. I'm not going to walk and talk probably well. I'll pull up all my points here so that I can. All right, there are several factors that can contribute to behavioral health in youth. Traumatic life experiences such as abuse, neglect, and a dysfunctional household can increase the likelihood of mental health disorders. Also, social factors such as poverty, discrimination, and lack of social support are also contributing factors. Adolescent brains are still developing, which makes them vulnerable to these conditions. Alcohol and drug use can worsen mental health disorders. And substance abuse can also lead to other problems such as legal involvement and academic failure. Young people with behavioral health issues are more likely to come in contact with the court. Studies have shown that up to 75% of court-involved youth have a mental health disorder, compared with about 20% in the general population. Additionally, these youth are more likely to be incarcerated, which can exacerbate their conditions. For the most part, juvenile detention centers are not equipped to provide the specialized mental health care that young individuals with these disorders need. Also, being detained can increase anxiety, depression, and other symptoms of their mental disorder, potentially leading to self-harm and aggressive behavior. Incarceration often fails to address the root issues of what is going on with the kid. If they do not receive appropriate treatment while they're in a juvenile detention facility, when they're released, they are much more likely to reoffend. So some common mental health disorders in the juvenile justice population include ADHD, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. About half of adolescents with a mental health disorder also have a co-occurring disorder. For example, about 30% of adolescents with depression also have an anxiety disorder. So the COVID-19 pandemic, the measures that were implemented have had an impact on youth mental health. A study by the CDC found that the prevalence of adolescent depression and anxiety increased by 50% during the pandemic. Now, we don't exactly know what the long-term effects of that will be, but definitely youth having to isolate from friends and family, the disruption of their normal routines, and educational concerns because of the shift to online learning contributed to increased stress and anxiety. Now that you have sort of a foundation for the issue that we're examining, I'd like to turn it over to Dave Joseph, our program director, who can talk about the importance of evidence-based screening, assessment, and programming.
Thank you. I'm not a very good partner, Nicole. I'm sorry. I should have taken care of that clicker for you because it's very difficult to do both. But as Nicole said, I am the program director at the juvenile court, and I'm responsible for the supervision of our probation staff and our counseling staff and our diversion team, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. But to start off with the screenings and assessments that we use at the court, I know we heard a couple of rallying cries for the Lions, but I'm also a big Tigers fan, and they beat the Yankees last night, and if you're watching the season, you see some very special things happening with Miguel Cabrera as he wraps up his career in various stadiums, and the young people that are coming up. And so baseball has evolved in a lot of ways, and those who are very interested in baseball know that baseball uses a tremendous amount of statistics and analytics, and they are able to predict by looking at past practices what batters do against certain pitchers. And if you're even just a casual observer, you can see it's gotten so evolved that the entire infield will shift over to the left side or to the right side. And it is because of the analytics and the research that's done on that particular hitter that they can almost pinpoint where that ball will go before the pitcher throws the ball. It's gotten so precise, in fact, that Major League Baseball changed the rules this year regarding how shifts can take place. So we use a lot of information at the juvenile court. We are very analytic driven, and some of the things that we do when a kid comes in is that we are now focused on what brought them to the attention of the juvenile court. For many, many, many years and decades, juvenile court probation sort of acted as if we were a mini version of the adult system. And when we have kids that come into our system, they come to us with all types of brokenness, mental health being one of the biggest. And what we try to do in the juvenile court now is, instead of just having our probation officer interact with the child and say, here's the list of rules that the judge has imposed upon you, and my role as the agent of the court is to monitor and surveil and make sure that you're compliant with these rules. And hey, it's not personal, but if you go astray, I'm going to have to recommend that the judge lock you up. That's not sufficient. And I've been in the county for about 30 years, started my career in Children's Protective Services, and then partnered with Nicole about 20 years ago, as she was then the supervisor of our drug court program. And the uniqueness of the drug court program was that we looked at what brought the child to the attention of the court. With substance abuse, it was easy to identify, and we tailored programming to that specific need. Drug use, alcohol abuse. When we treated the problem, the root problem, the delinquency went away. We've expanded that across that drug court model, across our entire court, juvenile court, and the way that we do that is to try to understand what is going on with a kid and what was the antecedent, what brought them to the attention of the court. We use a number of screening instruments, the first being on our list is the MAISY. It's the Massachusetts Youth Screening Instrument. It's a very simple instrument that allows our probation staff to go through roughly 50 questions. It is very simple questions written on a 5th grade reading level, and it doesn't require counseling level credentials to administer the test. Scoring takes about 3 minutes, and we're able to learn a lot about the child's mental health conditions during our intake process. We also use in our intake department something called the Youth Level of Service, or the YLS. The YLS looks at 8 what they call criminogenic variables, predictors of future delinquent behavior. Again, thinking in baseball terms, we're trying to get a read on what this person's history is an attempt to try to predict where they may be headed. We use ACEs, it's Adverse Childhood Experiences, 10 question, and it looks at things like, what was the home like that you grew up in? Were you loved? Did you feel loved? Did you have a caretaker that looked out for you? Were you exposed to domestic violence or substance abuse or things of that like? And the scoring of the ACEs also helps us to get a gauge of where the child is at. We have a number of very high-level qualified counselors and a court psychologist that will do a deeper dive if we see the need from some of our initial screening instruments. What we don't want to do is, like the analytics that are used in baseball, we know that children are not absolutes. So the fact that they've been exposed to trauma, the fact that they've been exposed to all manner of domestic violence and dysfunctional homes, we don't ever want to communicate to a child that their destiny is pre-written. We don't want them to think that because statistically it's likely that they're going to hit the ball to the left side of the infield, so we move all of our people to that side. We want them to know that their future is self-determining. And so, say maybe about 10 years ago, I was at a conference in Los Angeles, and I met an individual by the name of Rick Miller. Rick Miller heads up Arizona State University. Kids at Hope is his organization, and they do a lot of studies on the impact of teaching a kid to be hopeful. Our probation officers have been trained, and we spend a lot of time with the Kids at Hope people, because what we were trying to appeal to is to say to a child, despite the fact that you're struggling, that you have a tremendous history of trauma, your future is what you make it. And so talking to a kid about being hopeful, and I'm not talking about what Rick calls toxic optimism, this belief that someday things will be better. They will be better because you will work with our team and we will work with you and your family to develop a client-centered plan to address mental health issues and begin to put the action steps in place to see an optimistic future. We use that, one of the exercises in our Kids at Hope sort of curriculum, if you will, is to time travel, to take the child forward and to see their life in a different way, how they would like to see themselves. Again, we're talking about kids who have suffered through incredible trauma, and as I may have mentioned, I started my career in Children's Protective Services in Macomb County, and I found that the demographic that I was working with in the delinquent population was the same demographic that we found in the protective services world. That is that a child can be abused or neglected for the first 13 or 14 years of their life, and all of our programming is designed to help them. But if they steal a bottle of booze from Meijer, or they use drugs to try to cope with their life, they're now a delinquent. And the whole system kind of shifts. We don't see it that way at the juvenile court. And so what we do is we try to partner with our community mental health team, and I see Mr. Pankate is here, and we meet on a regular basis with our community mental health folks, and we've engaged in a partnership with them to look at, I don't know where I'm at on the slide anymore, but I'm close. So,
Shifted from screening and assessment. Now you're in the...
Yeah, that was a hard shift. Sorry about that, everybody. Well, what we do with all of those assessment tools is we look to put together a plan that is client-centered. We spend a lot of time talking with the kid about where their life would like to be different. Those are practices that we use in both our diversion and in our probation programs. The diversion program is designed to keep the relationship between the court and the family and the child in a very informal way. The petitions are not authorized in the sense that there is no, well, we've had some changes with expungements and things, but in the diversion program, we like to keep them away from the probation staff, so we try to address the situations, the problems that led to the filing of the initial petition. We divert roughly half of all the petitions that come to the court from the prosecutor's office, and in those instances, what we're really trying to do is connect those kids with the resources that hopefully helps them to take control of their life. The biggest relationship that I think we have in terms of treating our kids who come to us with severe mental health issues is the partnership that we have with Community Mental Health. They offer a number of in-home, very intensive programming, but for a long time our programs were acting sort of in parallel to one another. The integration of those when we have a child who's involved with the juvenile court and also with CMH is to make sure that our direct service people are connecting. So we kind of retooled our probation programming to make sure that when we have a child who's involved with CMH, they do a lot of wonderful things, and one of them is a multidisciplinary team that meets weekly to talk about the kids' progress. For too long, we were matching our probation staff. Those cases can be lower offending cases, but they escalate very quickly. And what we ultimately want to do is keep the child out of the detention center. So partnering with CMH to have a probation officer that's able to facilitate these weekly meetings was a restructuring that we did at the court, and it's proven to be quite successful. We have, Nicole put it best, when you're talking about detention for juveniles, we don't find tremendous success with trying to punish bad behavior out of the kid. You know, to try to help them to get their life on track by way of punishment, quite simply just goes in the opposite direction. We found ourselves in the juvenile court almost as the mud hens for the Tigers, keeping with the baseball analogy, and that the Department of Corrections became the big leagues, and our juvenile was sort of a feeder. So you'll hear from Ms. Misch a little later in talking about the jail. We're doing everything we can to keep our kids out of the adult system, and we do that through community-based programming. CMH is immensely important. We also have some intensive-based probation that we partner with our counseling teams at the juvenile court. So when we have a child who is suffering from anxiety, depression, we see a lot of our kids that are diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder and a number of other things that really just need some professional intervention. So we have our intensive probation program where we partner with our in-house counseling team, and together the probation officer and the counselor service the child and the family, again, with the whole goal always being to use community-based programming whenever possible. We do draw the line when a child is just out of control to the point that violence is a part of their life. And so hurting people is kind of a non-starter for us, in that we know that we have to get the child safe and in a safe place where they can't hurt other individuals while we work with them. But we've had tremendous impact in reducing our detention rates, and we're very, very proud of that, with some very successful results with kids moving on and doing some great things. Nicole, where am I with the slides now?
I switched to key takeaway. You're wrapping it up.
I'm wrapping it up, yeah. I'm known for brevity, so thanks. The things that we wanted to make sure that we left with you, the fact that we at the juvenile court have very clearly defined that early identification and intervention is supremely important, and every facet of our programming is designed to keep the child from going deeper into the system. So we have a prevention sort of model, and we are trying to prevent the child from going, say from diversion to intensive. We always promote as best we can partnerships with our schools, obviously CMH, DHHS, and their CPS teams have been very helpful. But the focus is always on community-based interventions whenever possible. Again, we see, and our probation staff see, detention always as an opportunity to look inward and say, what could I have done differently to prevent this? One of the biggest things I'm most proud of is that our probation officers they were issued a badge. The judge gave them a badge many, many years ago, and they saw themselves not too long ago as officers, law enforcement leaning officers. And now our probation officers like to refer to themselves as change agents. They are there to help a child make changes as opposed to just surveilling and monitoring. So they look at incarceration as an opportunity to say, what could I have done as the case manager differently to prevent that? Always looking to provide appropriate treatment and connecting youth with the treatment that they need for mental health is always a tricky thing to do, but it's one of our focal points. And something that I'm very proud of, as well as the relationships that we formed to get the kids there. We simply are not just referral brokers, but real true partners. So in closing, I'd just like to say thank you to my Board of Commissioners and the Tri-County Summit. Organizing this event is really a great thing to shine light, and I appreciate in particular Commissioners Lucido and Grott for making our juvenile court a part of this day. Commissioner Kraft, who's been a big proponent of mental health and chairs our mental health board, and of course Commissioner Brown, who hopefully will look favorably on our budget request to bring more change agents to the juvenile court. We do have some needs, and we will be making those during the budget process. Not today, Commissioner. Not today. I won't make the shameless pitch to you today. But Commissioner Brown gets a little bit squeamish when you start talking about money. And I do, honestly, Commissioner Brown, I appreciate not only your leadership, but your friendship for well over 20 years. And when our county was taking the lead on Raise the Age and some of the other things that we've done to be the leader, well, not the leader, Oakland, and it's kind of a tie, Wayne and Oakland are sort of leaders as well. But Macomb has always prided ourselves on being in the forefront of juvenile justice reform, and some of these things take revisions at the funding stream level, at the root of this, and I appreciate you, Commissioner Brown, for always being willing to listen to our needs and try to get us the provisions that we need. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all today, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
It's still morning, so good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Doeh. I'm a Wayne County Commissioner representing Canton Township, the City of Plymouth, and a portion of Plymouth Township. And I'm very honored to introduce Judge Freddie Burton. A graduate of Wayne State University Law School, Judge Freddie G. Burton Jr. has been a member of the probate court bench since 1987 and served as chief judge from 1990 through 1997, and again from 2015 to today. Prior to assuming his position on the bench, Judge Burton served as a Wayne County Commissioner and as a Wayne County Public Administrator. He was also in private practice for several years. Judge Burton is a member of the National College of Probate Judges, the Michigan Probate Judges Association, the Association of Black Judges of Michigan, the Wolverine Bar Association, and the National Bar Association. According to Urban Institute, a nonprofit organization that provides data and evidence to help with decision-making and improve the well-being of families and communities, roughly 56% of state prisoners, 45% of federal prisoners, and 64% of jail inmates have a mental health problem. And instead of getting the help they need, many people end up in the criminal justice system and can't seem to get out. In an interview with the Ethel and James Flynn Foundation, Judge Burton speaks about a revolving door problem, where there's a breakdown in communication between law enforcement, and hospitals. Judges may order hospitalization, but once the person is stabilized and let out, they may stop taking their medication and end up right back in the courtroom. The Wayne County Jail Mental Health Initiative seeks to end the issue of the revolving door, not only saving the county millions of dollars, but also ensuring that these individuals receive consistent, effective mental health treatment. So thank you for joining us today, Judge Burton.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. As she detailed the years that I've been around, I guess it removes all doubt about my age. Clearly, I've been here for many, many years, but I'm grateful to still be standing here as opposed to the alternative. I'd like to first thank Chair Bell, Chair Brown, Chair Woodward, all of the commissioners who are here. I see our clerk from the court, from the county, Madam Clerk. Good morning. I want, and I think that we have someone from the county executive's office too. Is that? Yes. All right. Good morning. It is my distinct pleasure to have the opportunity to come before you today. I'm going to be talking about the Behavioral Health Unit. I know that first, though, I want to at least be able to introduce the panelists. Where are they? They're gone. Eric Doeh, where is Eric? Go on up, Eric. Eric is president and CEO of the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. I could detail all of his, he says, no, don't do that, huh? But I am going to do it anyway. I mean, he has been in every office you can think of in terms of practicing law. His only failing, just one, is that you'll know soon that the other panelists all went to Michigan State University. And unfortunately, well, he's a nice man. Got a little confused and went to U of M. And we forgive him. I know, yeah. I thought you'd like that. But he has practiced in the prosecutor's office in Wayne County. He's practiced at the U.S. Attorney's office. He's practiced out in Washington, D.C. He's an adjunct professor. He's just an extraordinarily talented man. You're going to hear from him a little bit when we do our question and answer session. But we are truly fortunate to have Eric Doeh serving as the president and CEO of the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. And so I just wanted to welcome you, Eric. The next person that I'm going to introduce is Dana Lasenby. Dana, would you come forward? I met Dana just a few years ago when she was still working with Wynn, and then she decided to leave us. And we understand why she left us. We're sorry that she left us, but we understand that she had been named president of the Oakland Community Health Network, and that she's doing a wonderful job in Oakland County. She's helping people constantly. She's got 27,000 people she serves. She has 300 service providers. Eric, I could have gone into more detail with you, but you said that's okay. and that she clearly, in addition to being a scholar of great magnitude, having graduated from Michigan State University, yeah, I'm unabashed Michigan State guy. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology from Western Michigan University, a master's in business administration as well from the University of Phoenix. She is extraordinarily talented. We're extraordinarily fortunate to have her in our region to work with us and to assist and present today before this very honorable body. I also want to have an opportunity to introduce Captain Lori Misch. I haven't met her, but I know is she here today? Are you going to be shy? Please come and have a seat.
Go Greene.
Go white. All right. Captain Misch has worked her way up. She started at the academy. She became an officer. She then became a sergeant, captain, and now she's very much heavily involved in behavioral health. Thank you so much for your service and what you do for all of us. Okay. I'm going to offer a short presentation about the behavioral health unit, and then we're going to sit down and ask my colleagues to answer a few questions. I don't know, we have about an hour, or maybe a little less given the time frame, but we will, if you hold your questions after the questions have been addressed by the panelists, we will then certainly hear from all of you. Okay? Are you cold? All right, I'll try to be. We got slide 1. I can't see it, and I'm dangerous with slides. In fact, I'm going to ask Christina to come up. Last time I used this thing, it went out. It blacked out in the middle of the presentation. It wasn't your fault, Christine. But the first item, I want to talk about the history of the behavioral health unit. I believe that there isn't such an entity anywhere in the state of Michigan when we decided to work to pull it together. But actually predating that, in 2018, Chief Judge Tim Kinney and I met, and we were both concerned about just the things you heard about Mr. Andrews and those speakers before us. We didn't have enough commitment to helping people who needed the assistance because of behavioral health. And so we began to encourage participants to work with us so that we might be able to address this issue. Well, to our surprise, we got some 80 participants from all around the county who were dedicated to trying to help and address this issue. We learned right away that collaboration was what we needed to work on. We realized that this revolving door of having people come into the hospital and go back out again, go back into the hospital every week or 2 weeks, was just not appropriate, not right, and should not be tolerated. So we pulled together this group of people, these 80 or so people that we had in our county. And what we did is we worked in a committee structure. There was the AOT, Assisted Outpatient Treatment, and there was Familiar Faces. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Familiar Faces in a moment. We then also had a second committee, which was information sharing and problem solving, Sober Center and Crisis Drop-Off. We asked Eric to chair that, and he did graciously. The CCBHC, which is a Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinics, which got a real boost a year or two ago from Senator Stabenow. We're extremely pleased about the progress that is being made. I guess we'll go to slide 2 now. Yes? So what is the BHU? Well, it's the unit of government that we have incorporated. When I say we, the Wayne County Probate Court. Why do we do this? We decided to do it because after doing all of these committees, we figured it out, we narrowed it down, and then we thought, now what? What do we do? And by the way, I mentioned Chief Kinney a few minutes ago, Chief Judge Kinney. He's retired, and we were extraordinarily fortunate to get an extremely talented successor to co-chair with us in the Wayne County Jail Mental Health Initiative. That would be your very own Chair Bell. Please acknowledge her. Now, a major component of the behavioral health unit is the initiation of widespread use of assisted outpatient treatment. What is that? Imagine this. I hear cases every day in the Wayne County Probate Court. We'll get a petition for mental health treatment. We will appoint an attorney for the respondent. There will be an attorney for the hospital that will advocate for hospitalization or advocate for treatment of that individual. After we receive testimony, it's my responsibility to make a decision about that petition. And what we find is that oftentimes the doctor will recommend a combined treatment order of 180 days with up to 60 days in the hospital. I say it in my sleep because we hear it every time. The 60 days is designed to stabilize you, reach your baseline. But the reality is, rarely prior to us implementing AOT did anything happen but that person would be hospitalized and 5 to 7 days turned out into the street. At the most, 5 to 7 days. Now we're working it differently, and that is we have these patients that are scheduled to be discharged from the hospital. The law requires that 5 days before discharge from the hospital, notice must be given to DWIN, must be given to the behavioral health unit of the court, must be given to the service providers, must be given, and I always put this in all my orders, must be given to the guardian or a family member. I'm sure all of you have experienced sometime or another what people deal with, loved ones who have behavioral health issues. I had a case just the other day when the petitioner got on we use Zoom a lot in probate court. When she got on Zoom, she literally could not control herself. The tears flowed through the entire hearing because she has this loved one who's her son, who's talented, and she's gone to every single clinic, hospital, court, you name it, without getting the assistance that she needs for her son. And so what we do now is we bring all of them together. That families shouldn't be alone with trying to help the people who are suffering from the mental illness. And so we're working very hard to encourage the respondent to say, tell Judge Burton, who do you think would be a person that you can work with so that once you go through hospitalization, by the way, hospitalization might be 60 days ordered, but you have to discharge people when they reach their baseline, when they stabilize. That's usually about 10 to 12 days. And so they transition into assisted outpatient treatment. That's usually for a significant period of time, about 90 days. That's where it's really critical in terms of coming together as an organization. And we are doing that. We're working hard with that. And I think that family needs to know that it's not just a comment that we care. We really do care. How can you not? When you see the young man who's walking down the middle of the street, middle of the night, the police don't want to shoot him, and he comes towards them. You've all heard this story. He comes towards you, and you're saying, stop. They've been trained, by the way, to try and step back, to negotiate, to talk. And then at some point, they get so close with the weapon that they have, the police don't have a choice. I always feel like that didn't have to happen if we catch it early. We try to assist early on. And so we have to keep working. I welcome, by the way, your suggestions, your ideas of how we can do this better. But I think there's a real commitment to getting this done. I'm going to not stay up here too much longer because I know that I'm spending my time more than I should. So I'm going to jump all the way to the end. What is the end? I want you to know how to reach us. I want you to know if you have a question, if you have a concern, if you want to discuss this matter. Or, I think time would be well served today, if you have questions about how we operate the court, how can we assist in terms of your county and the people in it, what can we do to help? So with that, I think you see on the last, did you jump to the last screen? By all means, reach out to us. We will coordinate. We view the behavioral health unit as a triage center. And it's not just for Wayne County. If there are people in Oakland County or in Macomb County and you need to reach out, we work well together. And we will continue to work together so that we can do what's in the best interest of those who are before us. Thank you for that very brief presentation. Each of the panelists have graciously agreed to offer questions and to me and to respond to those questions. And so I'm going to start with Ms. Lasenby. Dana, would you come? You want to do it right there?
I don't know if anybody can hear me from right here.
All right. I'm going to step aside.
Okay.
I'm going to say the question first. All right. How do justice-related programs in Oakland County impact the way your organization manages behavioral health care for families and individuals?
Thank you, Judge Burton, for your kind words, and good morning, everyone. I would say, how does it impact? The collaboration with the county executive and the county board of commissioners is critical, because the only way that we can do successfully what we do is to work together. And the first thing I'll say is really the educational part. The community education is critical. People need to know where to go, where to call, and we have to be there to answer those calls. When I came to Oakland County about 3 years ago now, and it is my home, so I'm happy to be home. Actually, I didn't know a lot about what OCHN did, or Oakland Community Health Network did, which is the organization I was going to work for. I knew it was very similar to Detroit Wayne, but I didn't see enough of the resources in the community. So I'll say the first thing is community education is critical. Knowing where to go and to tell people what we do as a network of providers who provide services for individuals with developmental disabilities, individuals with serious mental health conditions, even those individuals with mild to moderate mental health, or even children and youth. So what we've been doing over the last many years, even prior to me being there, is educating the community, but also making sure we assess the needs of the community. So although we work extremely well together, we all have unique needs in our community, and we need to hear from our community about what they need. More specifically to the justice initiatives and the things that we're doing around jail diversion and things of that nature, it really is, again, answering the call, but also talking about the services and programs. So you don't really know what you need until you need it sometimes. And so making sure that when we are talking about those programs, we're putting them in ways that people understand. We're including all of our stakeholders together to work together on those programs that we know work. We're very fortunate that we have our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Pozios, who's in the back corner of the room, who is a chief forensic psychiatrist, and he is very much committed to jail diversion and keeping people in treatment and care opposed to being incarcerated. But the other piece of it is making sure we're available when people are transitioning back to the community. And that piece requires us to also work together with our law enforcement community, also with our communities at large, about what happens when someone returns back. And many of us don't know that when individuals get arrested, they lose their Medicaid. So there's another barrier there that we have to help them overcome. So I think the way that we work best together is really just working collaboratively. There are no top secrets anywhere in a case or a safe anywhere. We need to open up our books and share what's working in what communities. And so I think that is the critical piece, is that we're at a point now with all of us here, we know what we need to do to work together and to share these great ideas we have and share outcomes. We also need to share when things aren't working. And people have a hard time with that because you don't get funded when things don't work. But you have to try these unique and different things to really make sure that we're doing what our specific communities need, but what our communities at large. Many individuals, especially youth, get on this bad pathway, and I really appreciate the previous speaker, and we sort of push them to the side, and then that is their path. Well, that doesn't have to be the end of their path. And so I think I appreciate these opportunities because we get to talk about what we do. We often talk about the most extreme that we do, but really there's a huge community education and prevention piece. And so that's how I say this is really such a great opportunity to open ourselves up, to talk, and to have these groups that really come with outcomes. I know we go to a lot of meetings, but we really want to produce those outcomes, and data is critical to that. So I'll stop it there, but I think prevention and community education is probably the critical piece in being there when people need us. You can't say, well, we have this whole group of services, and they knock on the door, they call you, and nobody answers.
Christina, could I ask you to stand for just a second? Christina is our general manager for the behavioral health unit. And she's doing a fantastic job, but I thought it might be more productive for us to have an opportunity to hear from the panelists rather than me, and to also answer questions. But if you like a copy of our slides, our PowerPoint presentation, if you see her, we'll make sure that anyone who wishes will have a copy of it. Okay? Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Captain Lori Misch. Captain? Well, you don't have to. I guess you got your microphone there. All right, I'm going to ask the question here. Does Macomb County have any new projects in the works to address medical and mental health issues in the jail?
We do. It's a very exciting time. I'm more comfortable standing, so thank you, Judge.
I'll stand too.
It's easier. Yeah, let's stand by each other. No, it's a very exciting time here in Macomb County. Thank you to our board. Thank you to all of the stakeholders in Macomb County. Thank you to everybody. We are now moving forward with a new jail project, and we are looking at doing jail better. Myself, back in 1990, when I was at Michigan State University, which was a great opportunity, I had the opportunity to go to Jackson State Prison. One of the things we did is we went to Jackson State Prison at the time. And I went through there and I thought, well, if there's anything I'm going to do in criminal justice, it's not work in a jail or a prison. It left such an impact on me, and I thought, that is not what I'm going to do. That has nothing to do with anything and what I want to do. And I actually wanted to work with juveniles, and life is a funny thing and where we all end up at. I did have the good fortune, though, to get hired into the Macomb County Sheriff's Office as a corrections deputy in 1995, and I made it out onto the road, and I spent the majority of my career working on the road and doing criminal convictions, working with the prosecutor's office, and putting people in jail. Like, that's where bad people go. People go to jail. And then I've had a couple opportunities, and then here I am working in jail administration, and I become the jail administrator. And with that basis of always wanting to keep the community safe, working with people, and now I am looking at a population of people that is so incredibly difficult for us to keep safe and secure. Being safe and secure in a correctional environment is an obligation that we have as a county. The sheriff's office is obligated to run the county jail. I am so fortunate to have partners in Oakland and Wayne County. Your jail administrators are phenomenal. Your corrections deputies are amazing for all the counties. They're hardworking people. They work 8 hours a day, 16 hours a day. They get ordered over. And we work in these environments that are incredibly difficult, and working with a population of people that are medicated and they have medical and mental health needs. 30% of our jail population has mental health medications. 80% of our jail population is medicated with medical and mental health meds. So we have people with high levels of need. The acuity of patients has increased, patients, inmates, however you want to refer to them, has increased. And it's up to us to take care of those people, to protect them from themselves and to protect them from others. So knowing those challenges, brick and mortar is a part of the solution. So we are very, very, very lucky to be able to be working on a new brick and mortar project, which is going to be a central intake assessment center. So we are hoping to be able to bring people in from all of our arresting agencies and jurisdictions, and they're going to be able to bring those people right to us. We have a lot of our own police agencies right now that are bringing inmates directly to us, and that gives us an opportunity to screen them, assess them, get medical care for them, and be able to start to provide for their needs. Verification of people's medications. If someone is sitting in a lockup for 72 hours before they come to us, and they're already without medications for 72 hours, what a uphill challenge that is then for us, and to keep people from decompensating and to be able to continue people with their medical and mental health needs is key. So getting people to come into us and that central intake is going to be huge for us, that assessment piece, but also being able to have that medical and mental health ability to care for people properly while they're in our custody. Currently, our medical and mental health unit was built in the 1950s. I'm sure as all of you have gone to school in the 50s or the hospital in the 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s or 90s, and the changes that have happened in different facilities. And we are really looking forward to having some of those changes with brick and mortar. But furthermore, we're also looking forward to having better working relationships with all of those partners that the judge spoke about too, making sure that we get those county access to the people that come into our facility and be able to get them the access that they need with community mental health and give that warm handoff to the people that come through our doors so that it isn't that revolving door of people coming back and forth. So we're very much looking forward to this new project and being able to house people safely, securely, and be able to do good things in Macomb County, and looking forward to working with our partners.
Thank you, Captain. Our next speaker will be Doeh. The question he has to present to you is, why is it important to have collaboration/partnerships between the justice system and the behavioral health system?
All right, Judge, I thought we made a deal that you would give me the easy question and they would get all the difficult ones. Thank you so much. A very good morning to all of you. To Chair Bell, the other county commissioners who are here. Certainly our county executive has been so supportive of what we've been doing over at DWIN. The 46 municipalities in Wayne County have just been extraordinary, and Chief Judge Burton and myself go way back, and so it's one of those things when Chief Judge calls upon you, you put all of the resources there, because at the end of the day, this is about people, improving the health and quality of life for people. What a great question that is, and as Dana and the captain touched upon, this is really about collaboration. I look in the audience there and I see my good friend Dave Pinkatai, who does the same work that Dana and myself do in Macomb County, and what a great partner he is for sure. But I also look to our law enforcement partners. I mean, think about this. Some 10 years ago, we would have never imagined behavioral health and law enforcement coming together. And, buttress that also with the courts coming into play. All three of us recognizing that jail is not the place for people with mental health challenges. Some 5 years ago, we did a study in Wayne County Jail and discovered that over 87% of the folks who were there just on misdemeanor charges had a mental health challenge. I mean, can you imagine that, 87%? So the question became whether people were just trying to make their way, through those doors to get into jail for a number of reasons, for housing, for food, for medication, so many reasons, and so when you sit down with folks like Judge Burton and of course retired Chief Judge Kenny, folks who are a whole lot smarter than myself, and I try to play a clinician all the time, but I'm so far away from it, I leave that stuff to Dana and other folks who are more gifted than I am. But we sat down and truly tried to determine what is the inception point? What determines why someone comes, in that direction as opposed to receiving services? We didn't want to be that best kept secret. Sometimes when you talk about that great Italian restaurant, folks don't tell you about it, but the pasta is great. Okay, that's good, but when it comes to services for people, you don't want to be a best kept secret. And so what we decided to do was really to have jail navigators, putting clinicians within the jail setting so that before someone is released from jail, they're already connected to services. But we took it a step further. What were some of the root causes as to why people were making their way or seemingly coming into contact with law enforcement in the first place? Was it lack of access to resources? So we started to get the provider network of well over 300 providers, more intricately involved. We started to determine, the area codes and zip codes in which people were coming from, trying to figure out why were they making it to the emergency departments as opposed to calling, and receiving services. So this was really a collaborative approach. But I tip my hat, truly to Chief Judge Burton. He certainly stands here and he's asking us these questions, but believe me, he's been so involved, and Christina and the rest of the folks truly have been. And I think what it has come from is a total commitment in realizing that what we did 10 years ago just doesn't work today. That's just the reality. Part of the reasons why at Detroit Wayne we are building a crisis center, because there is a recognition that, think about it, physical health care, urgent care, we have those in our communities for a reason, recognizing that someday you're going to be in the kitchen trying to cook something, you're going to cut yourself, you're going to need someplace to go, not the emergency department, but someplace to get stitched up and moving back again. Why can't we do the same when it comes to behavioral health? Why can't we do the same when it comes to substance use disorder? So these are some of the things that we are doing now at Detroit Wayne. On 7 Mile and Southfield there, we went to the legislators, and this is extraordinary, Judge. When you talk about mental health, you can go and talk to both sides of the aisles, and folks are willing to have that conversation, because mental health knows no type, no economic barriers, no color. All of those things, they just go out the door. So when we decided to speak with legislators, it was really about how can we support an integrated system that supports not just Wayne County, but Oakland and Macomb. And so when the $60 million grant was given to us to build this facility here, it really was because of the fact that we made it very clear that we wanted to serve this region. We wanted to serve Macomb and Oakland and Wayne, because when your kid is in need of services, imaginary lines means nothing to you. You're just trying to get them care. When your family member is in need, imaginary lines mean nothing. So that's what we've really been trying to do. And thank you so much, Judge, for all of your help and your guidance in making those things happen. Truly appreciate it. I think I went very long, right?
No, you did great.
Okay.
Each of the previous three speakers are extraordinarily modest. They're hardworking, they're thoughtful. They don't ask for accolades. They simply go to work. And I know that we have another set of questions, but I've been informed that we're running a little behind schedule. And so I apologize for that on behalf of how we got behind. I'm not sure, but maybe because we talk a lot. Yeah. In any event, this would be an opportunity, though, for anyone who's in the room who would like to raise a question. Yes. Please, would you identify yourself if you don't mind?
Good morning. I'm Darlene Buffington. I'm representation for AFSCME, mostly Wayne County, but we cover all the states of government. I have a question for Ms. Lasenby and Mr. Doeh. I'm familiar with your work. I have your literature here. One thing I want to know, of all of the representatives here that are functioning, we know the mental health crisis. This is the end of the suicide prevention week. What are you all going to do and collaborate on getting this information into schools for our children before they get to the level of getting to the sheriff's department? What are we going to do to integrate this and get it into the school systems to help this prevention? That's my question.
Yeah.
That's an amazing and excellent question, and I think the collaborations you see here are a representation of the answer. We actually were a part of responding to the huge tragedy in Oxford, and what I'll say is even before that, we knew our students, our kids, our families were going to struggle returning back to school into the community. So we created programs to be actively involved in the schools, and we have providers, and Detroit Wayne has providers, and Macomb has providers in schools. It's not enough. So we do the community education piece so people, again, know who to call, when to call, and where to go. But the other thing is that we do in terms of highlighting programs, we have school mental health navigators, and it's not just for students and families, it's also for teachers and administrators. And the other thing that is really the elephant in the room, you can access those services. We're the safety net. We primarily care for individuals who are uninsured or Medicaid, right? But we also know there's a gap for people who have insurance. They can't afford co-pays and deductibles. And uniquely with Oakland County Commissioner's approval, we have funds to support families who can't afford their co-pays and deductibles, especially after returning back to school. So those programs, again, we have to push them out and educate, and they can be on a brochure, but what if you don't speak the language? You can send it in an email, but what if you don't have web access, right? So we have to be in various forms in the community, educating teachers, administrators. And then the other thing we do is we really offer free training. And this is through the tri-counties, we all offer free mental health first aid training. So those are the kind of things that we often don't talk about or get to talk about because we get to the place that we don't want to be sometimes, and we're having to deal with a person in crisis. There's a lot of prevention we can do. If you see someone struggling and having a hard time, there's only 3 digits, 988, and that is the line to help people. So nationally, that's important. Locally, it's important. But as much as we're here and we're talking about this, now I always tell people, you're the ambassador. You have the information. You know somebody who doesn't have the information, share it with them. We work with our faith-based communities. They're hugely supportive and working with us because they need us too. So getting that word out, sharing that information, and giving it in a format that is in the language, that is in a way that people can get it and use it. And then we have to be accountable, and we have to answer those calls.
So one of the first things I did when I took this job was an initiative called Putting Children First. And with that, we put heavily our resources behind our 11 children's providers in Wayne County. We established a cohort that talked about, and within from kindergarten all the way to high schools, talking about dating violence, suicide prevention, I mean, you name it, we brought it within the schools, but we took it a step further. We brought in Youth United, young people who are ambassadors, who are serving to speak with other young people about these challenges. But you know, it's all about where you put your money too. So part of it was really investing dollars into those programs. In Wayne County, we are in well over 75 schools. We can be in more of those schools, especially when it comes to how we deal with young people and how we provide resources to young people. But we also have our DWIN app, or our 1-800 number, 1-800-241-4949. The DWIN app will connect young people, old folks like myself and even older, to any resource in Wayne County, right within a 5-mile radius of where you live. All you have to do is just put in your address, and it will connect you with all of the providers within the county and beyond, because we recognize that folks right now, we need instant resources, and if you can give people that, it can connect them, certainly to satisfying those needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. I understand that we have just room for one more question. However, if you do have a question and you can't get it answered today, again, I would ask that you contact, yes, I'm doing it. Would you contact Christina Morgan, and then we will distribute the questions that you might have, so we make sure we get an answer to you about anything related to what we've been discussing this morning. Do we have any other questions? Nope. Oh.
Can I just make a comment? Amanda York is Senator Debbie Stabenow's office.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank all of you for what you're doing and this conversation today. The senator is extremely passionate about mental health care. I'm sure most of you know that. That's her true passion. And just healthcare above the neck is just as important as healthcare below the neck. And so I just want to thank you all for this conversation, for this summit, for having this important conversation.
And please tell the senator how pleased we are with the services she's provided and made it possible for us to help others in the community. now we're getting the hook. You see that?
Let's give another round of applause for Judge Burton and his wonderful panel. This has been a wonderful first half of the morning between the broadband conversation, taking the survey, change ages that we need for our juveniles, and then of course the behavioral health in our jails. Thank you all again for the speakers who we've heard from thus far. We're going to take a 5-minute break so everybody can stand up, stretch, go to the restroom if necessary, then come back for the second half of our morning. Just 5 little minutes. Thank you so much.
We're gonna get started. Having a great conversation, a lot of content. I think it's important to recognize that a lot of the product of the presentation is develops over a long period of time of commissioners and staff and others spending a great deal of time working with experts and figuring out how to tackle some of these big problems together. And the next subject that we're going to be talking about, particularly as it relates into what is our region's role in the EV revolution that is happening here, not just in the metro area, but across this country. I'm incredibly honored. On our board, we have 2 new members that joined us, and they're in their first term. Dr. Ajay Raaen was part of the mental health study group. We sent Brendan Johnson, who I'm about to introduce, to our EV work group to talk about this subject. I just think that that's what we do. When we get new members, we send them to the new study groups and to help lead and represent us. But what's really exciting about this time, I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks about the talent, the businesses, the entrepreneurial spirit that exists in this region, in our county, but frankly in all counties in the metro area. And we also over lunch and after lunch have an opportunity to check. We've got one of our companies that's in this EV electrical powertrain transformation, FEV. We've got Chris Tallware, who's an old friend, but who's here. But there's also a product out there that is shaping how we reinvent cities. And so I encourage you to check it out. It's just truly exciting. But to make this all work, we're going to have to figure out what the grid looks like, what the infrastructure looks like, what's what are the innovations that are in place, and how to uncouple those from taking action to make progress. And so to lead us in this conversation today, with the Charging into Our Future guidebook that's all in your panels is Commissioner Brendan Johnson. Like I mentioned, is a new member of our board, also the youngest member. I used to be the youngest member long ago, but our youngest member to the board, who brings an incredible amount of policy knowledge and experience. In addition to his work in the county, works in Lansing for Representative Sam Steckloff, and we are just so fortunate to have him in Oakland County. So without any further ado, to lead us into the next conversation, Brendan Johnson, where'd you go? You're right, there you are, there you are. Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, it's great to be back in this building. My parents actually had their wedding reception in this building, so, well, I'm told, I wasn't there. And I've only been on the board since since January, really, and I'm honored to be checking off so many things so quickly in my first term. This has been a huge thing that I can check off the bucket list. I also get to check off today, where I'm the leader of something, and I get to say, I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. I've been wanting to say that for a long time. No, good morning. I'm Commissioner Brendan Johnson. Very proud to represent Oakland County's 4th district, that's Auburn Hills and Rochester Hills. While I don't work directly in the auto industry, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather all did, and I'd reckon a large plurality of my neighbors and constituents in Auburn Hills and Rochester Hills do as well. Needless to say, it's on my mind often, and as an EV driver since January of 2020, I think endlessly on all things EV, from the technology side to the policy side.
and readiness that Metro Detroit has to assume as we drive this revolution forward. So I've been very excited about this panel today. It's called Charging into the Future. When my colleagues were tasked with the theme of energy and technology, I had lots of ideas, but that was the resounding consensus of our task force, was to talk about EVs. To that end, I'm thrilled to have gathered this distinguished group of experts who will represent the forefront of this electrifying industry. A lot of my task force members are here. If you are on our task force, would you please kindly stand up to be acknowledged? We've got Oakland County Commissioner Gwen Markham, Macomb County Commissioner Maya Song. We've got Wayne County Commissioner Terry Marecki, Macomb County Commissioner Dan Van Sickle, and Wayne County Commissioner Monique Baker McCormick. Thank you all very much for your help. I'd also like to acknowledge, I know we've got FEV in the house. Javis, are you in the house too? Javis in the back, one of our amazing suppliers. You will see their feedback along with a lot of other feedback in the guide that we inserted into your booklet. So everyone dig through your bag, pull out that pad of paper, and there's a guide called Charging into the Future. We could have this conversation for, I'm good to go for 7 hours. And there's a lot that we have to talk about, so we didn't want to do that to you. So we put a lot of supplemental questions into the supplemental booklet. Please do go through it at your leisure. Our panelists include a visionary automaker at the forefront of designing cutting-edge electric vehicles and redefining the way we commute and reduce our carbon footprints. We've got a charger manufacturer, pivotal in shaping the infrastructure needed to support the electrification of transportation. And we've got an energy utility who plays the critical role of ensuring a sustainable and efficient supply of the power needed to move our electric vehicles. Together, let's explore the intricate interplay between energy, technology, transportation, shedding light on the transformative potential of EVs. This conversation could take a long time, so buckle up. No, I promise I'll keep it brief. But we don't have a long time. I've got a quick out at 12:15 for lunch to be ready. So without further ado, please buckle up, and we'll begin this electrifying journey. And I promise that's the last pun that I will make. I'm actually going to sit down. All right. So my first question, while I'm sitting down to be nice, is actually, oh my God, I did not introduce you guys. So sorry about that. No, now this is the part that could take a long time. From DTE, right here, we've got Tony Tomczak. He's the Vice President of Electric Sales and Marketing. Tony is responsible for developing and executing marketing and sales growth, value-add programs, including major accounts, community lighting, and joint use businesses. He joined DTE in 2006, most recently serving as the Vice President of Corporate Services and Chief Procurement Officer. Prior to that, he served as the Supply Chain Manager, Director of Supply Chain Management. Tony earned his bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Purdue University. If my boss were here, she'd say boiler up. And his Master of Science degree in industrial operations with a distinction from Lawrence Tech University in our very own Oakland County. To his left is Anish Pradakar from ChargePoint. ChargePoint, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is a charger manufacturer. Anish is the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at ChargePoint. He has 18 years experience in the automotive, transportation, and energy industries. His passion lies in leading efforts to solve technical and business challenges surrounding technologies that will improve our efficiency in energy and safety in mobility. He received his MBA and Master's in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and, yep. As a Spartan, I won't dignify that. And his Bachelor's in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Pune in India. And then to his left is Alex Keros. He is the EV Infrastructure Development Director of Ultium 360 at General Motors. Alex has extensive experience in deploying infrastructure solutions. His team is building an extensive public charging network via collaborations with EVgo, Pilot Company, and GM's dealer network. Since joining GM in 2007, he's created frameworks around innovative products, including the Chevy Bolt EV and GM's hydrogen fuel cell Equinox. He previously served as the commissioner of the Massachusetts Zero Emission Vehicle Commission and the Maryland Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council. He's currently on the board of the Alliance for Transportation Electrification and the Electric Drive Transportation Association. Those of you who are true Metro Detroiters might recognize his name, as he learned the ropes at his family-owned restaurant, American Coney Island. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Natural Resource Management and a Master's degree in Business Administration from the University of Michigan. Folks, I'm outnumbered. It's okay, I live in a split household, so it's fine. No, but my first question is going to be to, actually, Anish, could you, so ChargePoint, and while I'm sitting down, could you just give us an overview? I think a lot of folks, actually, could I have a raise of hands? Who owns and drives a 100% electric vehicle? Okay, so very few of us. And are there any others who have a plug-in hybrid? Okay, another handful of us. Cool, so that's who we're talking with. Could you then give us a very brief overhead of different charger shapes, levels, that whole thing, so we have kind of a definition and glossary before we go?
Yeah, of course. Hi everyone. I'll try to keep this non-technical, just as a pure EV driver or potentially EV driver. So charging is broadly divided into three categories: level 1, level 2, and level 3. You can classify level 1 and level 2 as slow charging, level 3 as fast charging. So within level 1, so generally, all vehicles, if you go and buy an electric vehicle, the EV generally comes with a level 1 charger. And what that means is you can plug that into the normal port that you have, the 120 volt at in any garage, in any household. It generally takes about 24 hours-ish to charge an EV overnight using a level 1 charger. That's probably a bit too slow, so we have a level 2 charger, which is, if you buy that, you have to upgrade your electrical panel, etc. in the garage slightly to a higher voltage, and that usually gets a charge from 0 to 100 overnight about 8 hours. And then you have a level 3, which is the faster, so you're on a road trip and your phone charge while you're on the road. Then you have higher power chargers. Depending on the battery capacity, etc., you can charge anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour and get to full battery share of charge. So that's kind of an overview. In terms of plug type, it's slightly getting a bit technical. So up until now, the industry had one standard that was followed by most OEMs, and Alex can speak to that in more detail. And Tesla was following another standard. That is now getting consolidated, and Leo said, basically what it means is the connector type is getting standardized. It still be 2 connector types for the foreseeable future. How it kind of pans out is to be determined, but the industry is slowly starting to consolidate into more simplicity.
That's really exciting, because I don't think a lot of us were around the last time we did this. Was anyone around when Edison was alive and inventing? No. But we went through this about 120 years ago when we were consolidating on our plug type. And I mean, right behind us and behind a lot of you, there are plugs in the walls. We know if we travel to Europe or to South Africa or whatever, they have different plug shapes. So the same thing was happening here right before our eyes. And we are finally getting a consensus on it's J1772 for the normal level 1s, level 2s, and then the level 3, we're also finding a consensus too, so that's really exciting. I'm gonna actually, Alex, so when I bought my first, when I bought my first Faulds EV, I noticed that perhaps unlike a lot of other cars, it's not a one-for-one substitute. If you change your model or your lease is up, you can go buy another car, and no difference to your life is made. But it does change a little bit when you switch from an internal combustion engine or ICE vehicle to an electric vehicle. Your lifestyle changes a little bit. Can you just speak to a little bit of that landscape change on how the lifestyle changes?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guarantee the EV drivers in here are smiling because they're thinking it's better.
the vast majority of the rest of you are like, oh, I didn't want to deal with that, right? There's probably truth to it. So it's certainly in a world where infrastructure is being developed, there's some planning to do, right? To get to grandma's house, to get up to Traverse City, wherever you're going, you're going to have to spend a little bit of time thinking about it. The cool things is the cars these days are helping you think. You effectively can put your destination on the car, and along the way it says, hey, stop at these chargers. It might say stop at a DC fast charger or a level 3 charger as you're making your way, and those of us with kids know you usually can't get more than 200 miles without a kid saying, I want something. And then after they want that something, they usually have to go to the bathroom because 200 miles later, right? So those 20-minute increments, that's how we start to think about building that network. So you're absolutely right. The naysayers in this room, the people that don't want to, you have to plan a little bit. Now, here's the other side of it, and this is the cool side of it. Do you like being outside in the snow and pumping gas? Slushy shoes, remember that? All of us forget it, right? Those sorts of things. Imagine spending 15 minutes less time out on the road. I'm always late for a kid's something or another, right? My garage, for the most part, is where I feel most of the time. So those of you that know and think about how you charge your cell phone, you don't think about how you charge your cell phone, that's sort of the sarcasm of it. You plug it in at night, you wake up in the morning, it's full. If you're on an airplane, you go on a trip, you use it more throughout the day, you find a plug. That's what you do. But it becomes super more convenient when you start to think about all these benefits, right? You're not in the rain every day dealing with things. You're really giving yourself, my version of it is 15 minutes back each day or each week when you're not feeling. So there's this one side of it, and again, many of you right now are going, well, what about the people in apartment buildings and a bunch of these use cases that are really fair? We won't go down there. To the commissioner's point, we could spend 7 hours on a lot of these things. But for the most part, there's a little bit more planning and a lot more convenience.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And for the record, I am one of those apartment livers, and I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, so it is not impossible. I did lose an excuse for being late to stuff, though. I can't say I stopped for gas anymore. Now I'm just late. But Tony, switching over to you. So we talk about EVs, we talk about how nice it would be to have at-home charging. What does a good charging infrastructure look like? And I think this is going to segue into more of the big picture questions, but what do we need? What is a good infrastructure?
Well, first, Alex mentioned you charge at home. That's usually the first thing, and you charge at night, which brings a lot of benefits to the grid, right? People are not using electricity at night, so that's a good thing. If we have more of a level load, that helps costs to be defrayed across more of usage, but so that's the first thing, is to understand level 2 charger at home, have the right plug, 220 plug to do that, and you're ready to go. After that, we need to be very strategic in where we put chargers, in the type of charger that we put in place. So as we're thinking about it as a company, we're going through it and looking at the various types of situations. We talked briefly about multi-use dwellings. That is an area that as new buildings and apartments are being put up, builders need to be either having a new standard or preparing the ability to have chargers be in place for their customers. And I actually think over time, it's going to be one of those attraction things. If you don't have chargers and you have a multi-use dwelling, you're going to see less and less people being interested in your apartments. Public charging, right? So I think in general, you're going to see more chargers being available on city streets, in different places, at restaurants, points of destination. You think about those types of things, whether it's a business or where you work every day. You have fleets, right? So fleets will be out there and they will be electrified, and they need hubs and places for them to charge at night or at a particular time of day. We are contemplating those types of situations. But the one area that the utility is going to play a big role, I believe, is in regards to low income, right? So folks that have low incomes,
they're going to struggle the most, I believe, with buying vehicles, right? Because I think today the vehicles are expensive, and they need to become less expensive, but we need to bring everybody along with the journey. So how do we then provide charging and the ability to charge for those types of folks in those situations? After that, really the big part of what we do as a utility is making sure that we provide the services for those companies that want to put chargers in place to have the utility make-ready type work done. And so we're working on all those processes every day. It's not an easy thing because we're all learning at the same time, but we need to have consistent processes across our regions and being able to do that very efficiently.
I appreciate that. And following up, it just, and honestly, all three of you probably answer this too, but when I talk to folks about whether or not they want to switch from an ICE vehicle to an EV, a lot of the hesitation is this building up the infrastructure. And everyone seems to understand, well, okay, I can put a charger in my garage. I understand that. It's the fast charging that people are still very wary about, and we hear this, the fatigue, the worry. And I ask folks, well, what do you want it to look like? And that's the point where there's a lot of confusion. People don't really know. Like, I think it was a very human desire to substitute one thing for the thing that we currently see, and we currently see a gas station at every street corner. And so maybe, I don't know, if Anish, you want to take this, or someone else, but like, what are we going to see with the fast charging aspect specifically? Is it going to be fast chargers at every street corner? What are we looking at?
Sure, so let me answer that in two parts. One, from a pure consumer standpoint, it is very difficult to imagine what it needs to be because you're pattern matching to a gasoline vehicle user experience, which is fundamentally different than when you start owning an EV. And it switches within like 3 days of owning an EV. And it is completely different before. Because you are attuned to basically taking a stop and filling your vehicle going all the way. So I own an EV. I have charged in public a grand total of 6 times in a year. And typically, if you look at how the profile works, and I always say when you look at all this thing, you probably might be different because you're living in not a single family home. So I'd be interested to get what you have to say. But if you have a single family home and garage, most of your charging happens at home. Only a few times you're out in the road where you are extending the range of the vehicle, which is give or take about 250 miles, 300 miles, something like that. So how many times are you actually traveling beyond the range of the vehicle? How many times in a year? That you actually need to rely on a fast charger? Very few times. But the consumer switch doesn't unlock until you see those deployed. And the other piece is the gas station you can actually see around the corners. You can't see EV chargers out there yet. You will see it in years to come. But the other piece that is fundamentally different in a gasoline vehicle driver journey versus an EV journey is the search engine of your journey is your eyeballs. Meaning, if you want to fill up gas, you're taking, looking at an exit sign, going off the exit sign, filling up gas, and going on your way. If you're going an EV, most likely you're pre-planning your journey in your dash or your smartphone, etc., and you're not really thinking about necessarily stopping. And you're doing that, if you're on a road trip, you're stopping anyway for a 20-minute break and your vehicle charges while you're stopping. So the fundamental difference with owning an EV is not going to a charger to go somewhere. You're going somewhere and you're charging along the way the charger exists. And that switch doesn't really happen until you own an EV. So as today, if you're owning a single family garage, there isn't really any barrier to owning an EV. To answer the question about how do we see, we will have mass deployment of fast chargers, along our highways, so on and so forth, and there's government subsidies and so on, interest from several parties. So that will happen. Will you physically see with your eyeballs those many EV chargers as you see gas stations? No, you won't. But you don't need them because the utilization on those won't be as necessary as it is with gas vehicles.
Yeah, and to sort of Anish, we have great data, right? And maybe use your example. We just put some charging stations at 8 Mile at the Meyer those of us who still go to the grocery store and walk around for some quiet and peace, again, I have that 10-year-old and 12-year-old, but when you go there, you're there for 45 minutes. It's a perfect time to go charge, right? So double clicking on this doesn't mean the gas station has to unilaterally go away. It just means you can put charging in places where you're already going for that 30 minutes to 2 hours. And again, back to it. How long does it take to charge? It takes about 5 seconds. I get out, I plug in, and I go do my workout. I go do my grocery shopping. I go do those things. And those solve solutions like yours, where you are in an apartment building. We have those data, right? We have aggregated breadcrumb data, the way we like to call it, right? We can aggregate everybody's sort of behaviors and say, hey, what do you do? In Michigan, you are going to probably drive to Traverse City. I probably can look along the way in aggregated form and say, where do you stop along the way, right? We all sort of know, right? And you start to use those locations to put those charging and make it really easy. So it's going to be a little bit of the old with gas stations, particularly on a long distance road trip, but then it's also going to be a lot of the new, whether, and you brought up workplace charging, another great example of putting in charging in places where you're already going and you're spending time, and if we lower the power levels of those things, it can be a really nice complement to the grid. And just one more fun tweak to the thing is, we all want renewable energy, right? We're pushing, we're spending, and they're investing, particularly in the state, on those things where you have things like wind, you have things like solar. Those are intermittent. One of the really neat things about EVs, and more importantly EV charging, is we can talk to DT. We already have a program like this set up in real time that says, start charging the Alex's Bolt, right? When the wind is blowing, when the sun is shining. It goes away, turn it off, right? And so it becomes this really dynamic load that becomes really beneficial to further create the efficiencies in the grid as we move forward.
I think the other trick to all this is not like you can just kind of plop chargers all over the place. The utility has to make sure there's capacity, that there's electricity, enough electricity to be able to support those chargers. So that's where we have to work hand in hand with all of you, frankly, and the manufacturers to make sure that when somebody decides they want to put a charger in a Meyer or something like that we have the ability efficiently to get enough electricity to that charger to be able to do it. That's an interesting process and a lot of data too.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because another thing that I hear a lot about is that we need so much more electricity, because we have gasoline and we're going to have to just use the same amount of gasoline in electrical form. Is that true?
Two things. When I was talking about electricity or capacity to a certain spot. In general, DTE typically has enough electricity. We produce our own electricity enough for all of our customers every day. So when you hear about, oh, we need to curtail electricity for a certain reason, it comes from MISO. It's the Midwest Interconnect System Operator. We're part of like a 15-state conglomerate where all of us look across, MISO looks across all those states, and where there's a lack of electricity for a particular reason, they call upon all the utilities to help to support the entire grid. So we're typically called upon to say, okay, can you curtail with some of your customers in order to serve someplace else? In general, though, we have enough electricity today. We will continue to do that. We continue to invest. We have our integrated resource plan that was just approved, that looks 5 to 15 years out, and it looks and it describes how we will generate enough electricity to serve our customers in various ways. Wind, solar, battery. You may see another combined cycle natural gas plant in the future, depending on what load and things look like over time. You'll see more retirement of coal. So you will see this great portfolio and investment that we're looking to make sure that we have enough capacity, not only for today, but also for the EVs and other industry that's coming our way in the future.
Especially if you're charging at off-peak
hours? Or? So yeah, so in general, the little acronym or story that I have is today, the revolution of electricity happened when air conditioners came into our lives. So that was a very big bump in the usage of a home. Went, from 8 kilowatts to 19 kilowatts, right? So it's pretty dramatic. Today, you'll see a transformer on a pole. It will serve 8 homes, typically, even with all their air conditioners running. If those same 8 homes all had fast chargers, so this is why I don't want you buying a fast charger for your home. If they were using those fast chargers at the same time, that same transformer could only serve 3 of those homes. So now you're talking about a lot of infrastructure and things that are needed. So we all can play a part in helping the grid and helping the infrastructure by the things we were talking about here, the behaviors. How do you change and think about when my car needs fuel, when it needs electricity, and doing it at the right time with the right tools and all those types of things.
To be clear, do not put a level 3 fast charger in your garage.
That's my message.
They're also
My friends might have a different message.
very,
That's
very
my
expensive.
So just some data. I think it's quite illuminating. So in the US, there are about 280 million vehicles on the road today, give or take. Today, we are about 5-6% penetration of new vehicle sales that are EVs. That's about 1% of the overpopulation of vehicles on the road. If you project this out, 2030, we'll be at around 40%, 50% of new vehicle sales that will be EVs. That still puts us at about 10% of the total number of vehicles on the road that will be EVs. And this is a pretty aggressive growth projection. And if you look at where the charging happens, a lot of it happens at home at night. So we are really not extending the grid at a given point at all. And if you look at probabilities of how many road trips happen, how many times people charge out in the public, it's really not that much.
And I'm going to take it one step further. I don't want you to plug in and think about it. I want you to plug in and go live your life, right? So the tools that we are living in the way, I just talked about sort of managed charging, is all you care about is waking up in the morning and having enough miles to live a couple days, right? And you might want just one day, but all of us are risk-averse agents, and so a couple days would be nice. So the reality is plug in, say by 7 a.m., I want 80% of my battery filled, we'll figure it out for you, right? So those are the tools that we act like we are going to do things. We are doing these things now. We'd be really explicit, right? And what happens is in the background you say, hey, 80%, I'm waking up, I'm leaving early, whatever it is, your car is charged and ready to go. You don't know what happened in the middle of the night where GTE and General Motors in the background send these signals to you say, hey, charge this vehicle now. Don't charge this vehicle now. The other thing you don't want to do, right, is you don't want everybody plugging in and saying, oh, I'm going to set it to a time of use rate that is 12 a.m., and then all of a sudden we've created a new peak, right? And that's another problem we got to deal with. So again, being able to sort of work in the background, sort of back office to back office, using the connectivity of the car, using a lot of grid playing tools, we can say, hey, this is how we're going to charge these things and optimize the grid and avoid any additional resources. We can use those same things in the middle of the day when the sun shows up, at 10 p.m. when the wind shows up, or when we have additional resources to be able to deploy. So what's really cool about this part of this is the grid, the vehicle now doesn't become a problem for the grid. It literally becomes an asset to the grid, right? It's a distributed asset, and that's the complexity of what you need to manage, but a really, really cool side of where EVs can really help us as we move forward.
It really is cool, and I want to make sure that we're staying in the scope of this conversation, because there is a great future tense for resiliency around like school buses, especially folks. School buses, imagine if those were all batteries. That is a really cool risk management solution for the future, but we're not talking about that right now. I'm actually curious. I think if all three of you could tell me, like, we've got the national strategy, we've got state strategy to get ourselves to an EV future. At what point will we be there? You were talking about how many as a percentage of total vehicles on the road are EVs. When are we there? What do we need to do as local legislators to get there?
I'm going to leverage the previous conversations, which is the most incredible segue, I think, to EV charging that I've ever had. So the way I'll use the mental health crisis, you guys are practitioners, right? I was a smart cities chief before, so I engage a lot of city officials, and what always struck me is you're the people that get like done, right? It doesn't matter. The problems land in your lap on an every day, so what you have to do is figure out very detailed solutions as you work for it. So how do we know we're there? And I think you and I talked a little bit about this. I don't care about where there is. To me, there is the next 12 months. Let's just get our heads down. Let's figure out some of that low-hanging fruit that we can do to build those markets to start to address underserved communities in a right, thoughtful way. Get ourselves to the destination points, connecting major hubs within the state. Let's start focusing on it. This is a very in-the-trenches thing, right? When you put in a charging station, it's like 100 touch points and like 12 different entities. And you don't get away with it, including you guys, including permitting officials and those sorts of things. And if we show up to a permitting official who has no clue what this is and it slows us down, my leadership gets anxious. I get anxious. That just slows us down. So on one hand, it's, while there are other very important issues that we just talked about that I say you have to address, get familiar, understand, how do we streamline this process? Don't streamline the process around 1 and 2 applications a day. Streamline the process on hundreds a day. To put it into context of the level 3 or DC fast charging, we need 200,000 DC fast chargers in the United States by 2030. If you do some quick math, if I remember my math right, it's something like 7 to 10 DC fast chargers have to go in every day, starting now. That's a lot. That's a scale that we have to come up. That's where you guys are. So I don't know what there looks like, but I am saying there looks like tomorrow. Get smarter, help your people get smarter. Come to me and say, how do I get smarter, right? And focus on those sort of 12-month increments of like, what's next? Do the planning, get the people educated, start to think about it, don't dismiss it. Talk to your property managers and multifamilies. There are a lot of these little details, and that's what you guys do also.
Yeah, I agree completely with Alex. A couple of other points. We're not solving for any there specifically. In addition to that, if we look at consumer choice, all we're trying to do is provide the consumer with choice. So if you look at EVs versus gasoline, vehicle attributes, price comparison, etc., that price gap is closing rapidly. So in the next essentially year or 2 or 3, essentially there will be no difference between the price. So take price out of the equation entirely and then compare EVs and gasoline vehicles or other attributes. So then the choice is essentially like for like. The other piece is, although the switch in the mind with gasoline ownership versus EVs, it happens after you purchase. There's still a barrier to adopt EV, and it's not necessarily going to get solved until people start seeing chargers out in the field. So the collective task is, how can we shorten the deployment time to get chargers in the ground? And the constraint on the collective us is that we want to deploy quickly, the community wants to deploy quickly. There are just fundamental constraints in terms of how can we get there that is preventing us from rapid deployment.
I'm really glad, and Tony, I don't mean to cut you off, so you can go first for the next one. But that was a really good segue. I'm a musician also, and I've played in the Catholic Church for a long time. One of my old choir mates from my last church just got in a Volkswagen ID4, very sexy EV. I'm a young person. I tend to be a first adopter, early adopter, lean in. I like that kind of thing. She is not. And Volkswagen sold her this car because of a lot of the perks of having an EV. But they, and they're not in the room, so I feel fine saying this, they did not do a very good job of translating the future life expectations to her. And she relied on me as another EV owner to help work through a lot of the, how does having an EV work? Do I need a charger in my garage? How do I sign up to get an account at one of these charging stations? And it was kind of refreshing for me to watch someone struggle so hard with this. Not in a good way, but it made me think about my early adoption to having an EV. And I guess I'm curious, all four of us, right? Government, utility, charger, and automobile manufacturer, I think are at fault in a situation where a consumer in the United States buys a product and then doesn't really know how it works and how it relates to them. How do we allow those products to become more relatable so that she doesn't text me, I want to return this car, it's driving me crazy. And I say, don't do that, it's such a nice car. But seriously, like, whose responsibility is it to have that conversation? There are third-party apps. We probably all use PlugShare. None of us benefit financially from PlugShare, but this is kind of like a social media map where every charger that we know about has a profile, and we all rate them and we share comments about them. Super helpful when you're going on a road trip. ChargePoint and GM have proprietary maps that do the same thing. If I want to charge at ChargePoint, I have to have an account. If I want to charge at EVgo, I have to have an account. So these are all the things that we know about now that we've been living in this life, but a prospective buyer doesn't necessarily know that. Whose job is it to tell them?
One of the things that we do in a programmatic way is we have EV ride and drives. So there are events where we have them all over our territory where a person can sign up and you could try one of 10 different vehicles. And it's different types, it's different brands. It's not a sales job, it's about actually experiencing driving an electric vehicle and getting some education about it. It's probably the most fun and likable thing that we do in regards to electric vehicles. So it's a great learning experience. We just had one around fleet vehicles also. So heavy duty vehicles, pickups, things like that. But you can try anything and get an education about charging and what it means and all those types of pieces. That's one of the things we do. I like it. It's a good time.
So, Alex and I talk about this all the time, and the consumer experience should be as simple as pull in the charger, plug it in, be done. And actually, we are closer to that experience than maybe perceived in the market. Up until now, the experience has been like kind of all over the place. Due to a variety of reasons, just early days in the EV charging industry, EVs just generally. But there is now consensus within the community, within OEMs, charging providers, interoperability, roaming, all of that, where that experience is there and it percolates as to being the standard very quickly.
Yeah, it's everyone. So the defensive guy in me says, Uber can teach me how to do Uber. You did, right? Your friend did, right? Somebody came up to you and said, no way, I'm never doing that. And they said, well, shut up, here, look, click that. And you did it for the first time, and you're like, oh, that was sort of easy, right? And so there is a sense of, as we adopt as a community, people like you become an ambassador, people like me become an ambassador, many of you become an ambassador, and you're like, come on, this is super easy, you need to think through it. That being said, your point is a really valid one. What we do, this transformation is really complex, right? It's not just go find a public charging station. It's how do I get a level 2 plug installed in my house? And oh, by the way, it might be a 60 amp circuit. Most of us have 100 to 150 amp circuits. So you got to walk through a process of, the nice thing is those service lines usually have a drop feed that you can just tag onto it. I know that, you don't know that, right? But an electrician, maybe if there's their first time installing, might not know that, and they have to learn. So you think about the complexity of learning in this, it's not one thing for your friend, right? A lot of it's coming out in this or that, but we have a lot to teach, and it's all of our jobs. We're here today, I'm here today, part of educating. Hopefully you walk away and you're not, I don't expect you to be the expert. I always say, I expect you to now know me. And then Misch told me to pick up the guys said, you're gonna help me answer a question. The answer is I'll do it. That's my job. That's what we need to do. So we have to do it at a consumer level, we have to do it better. GM has some really novel tools, things like EV Live, where you can go online and basically have it's not a salesperson, but an expert walk in a studio around this technology. They're not selling you, you can answer questions, but not all of us have time to do that. Not all of us have the wherewithal to do it, right? So there's new tools, but we also have to just continue to churn in this space to help get the education. There is number one issue with EVs, education, right? Because at least many of us, me included, have preconceived notions about what it is, and we have to get rid of those things. And the real issue is we have to educate and reduce barriers along the way.
I really appreciate you ending with that because for me and for our task force at least, I think that was one of the biggest points of having this conversation with all of you, so that all of you now can be ambassadors to your constituents for some of the stuff that we talked about today. But we do have some time left for some questions if there are other things that you wanted to learn from this panel that we didn't talk about. I will say, I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff, but like we said earlier, there are so many more things we could talk about. We could talk about neocolonialism of mining and sourcing lithium and cobalt. We could talk about a crushing dependency on China for mineral refining and semiconductor chip manufacturing. We could talk about end-of-life innovation for batteries in cars. We could talk about tangential effects on housing, road funding, transit. But please, I want to keep this to, how does the Motor City continue to be the Motor City and lead here, right? So I genuinely did not see. Did you see who's first? Oh, please, thank you. That's not my job. And if you could just introduce yourself too.
My name is Dan, I'm from 239 Built Fiber. My question is, what percentage of charging happens at home compared to other?
It depends on who you talk to. 80 to 90% happens at home.
Yeah. And then when I go to charge, why am I charged 45 cents a kilowatt hour when the cost is more like, I don't know, Mr. DC, maybe like 2 or 3 cents?
In public?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have 2 cars. I have a Tesla and a Lightning.
Let's not go down the economic path, but I'll just say no, I'm happy to. But listen, when you go to a 4-stall station and it's DC fast charging, it's somewhere on the order of $500,000 to $750,000. That capital has to be made up in 45-cent increments, right? And reliability and technology and deployment, and DTE says, hey, we got to put in a 750 kVA transformer. Those things happen. So I can tell you with a lot of assurance that there's not a doubt, but that's why charging at home is such a benefit.
Sure. The other question is, why doesn't DC have a rate for charging a vehicle, or at least a heavily discounted rate at the time when you want the load to appear on your network?
We do.
No. At night. Absolutely. We do. At night, if you only.
Heavily discounted.
It's 11 cents a kilowatt.
It's not heavily discounted.
It's versus 18 cents.
What are your costs for a kilowatt hour?
I don't know what the cost is.
All right.
Well, my
All right.
point is it is lower at night, and when you're doing a fast charger in public, we don't set the price for the electricity. The owner of the charger sets it.
Can we throw the mic to representative in the first table right here? Oh, I'm sorry. Who has the? Oh, I didn't see you have it. Sorry.
Macomb County Commissioner Doeh, I'm on your group. One of the things I'm curious about with the 3 different levels of chargers, 1, 2, and 3, do using a particular type of charger affect battery life? Short answer is any charge affects any battery life. No, but using 1 versus 3. Generally, higher power is going to impact it, but over the course of the vehicle's life, no. Bi-leather is sort of the short answer. You're going to replace everything around that car versus the battery faster than you're going to have to replace the battery.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I had to get some notes. First of all, I
So my husband is here with me 24 years, so right now I'm just like, EV, we can't even discuss that. But
Why?
no, it's affecting a lot right now, so we're not gonna touch that. We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
But I will say that the average family household, you know, you spoke about children and everything, and that's great. You know, we did test drive a Tesla and everything. You know, it's good for the family. However, at my house we have like 5 cars, and so I think about how DTE in the Detroit area has a now time of day rate between 4 and 7, and installing that type of unit in the garage for 4 or 5 vehicles. I was with the same gentleman who just had questions about that rate change. It's very concerning for the average household, the working class, and in Detroit, the lower and middle class. You know, it's like, how is that even going to be affordable? And the last thing I'll say is, you know, Michigan, we have that type of weather with the polar vortex that, you know, we're very concerned about how those batteries are going to work in those, you know, that type of weather. And then we have flooding in some of the areas in southeast Michigan. And then down south, as we saw with those hurricanes, what happened was, when the hurricanes hit in the Florida area, those EVs couldn't work. They were like dead on the water. And then when they got them charged up, a lot of them were exploding. So there's some concerns here about this EV. So if you want to take one of those things, but one of the things I will say, I want to hear about this DTE day of time rate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's time of day rate is between 3 and 7. This was something, I talked a little bit earlier about capacity, right? And being part of MISO and at times having to curtail. When you think about 3 to 7 during the week, it's when everybody's coming home, people are working, the big industrials, everything's confluencing all at the same time, and tons of electricity is being used. The commission urged us to come up with a way for people to think about their electricity use between that time when everybody's using it. And that was the solution that was come up with not only us, but the consumers' energy also. So that's the reason why it was put in place. And it was to, again, we talked about behaviors and things that are going on with consumers. It was to try to change the behaviors of when you use electricity, especially in those times when everybody's using it. That's what it was.
Let me if I said 20 cents a kilowatt hour to you guys, I want you roughly to times it by 10, and that is what the gallon equivalent is. So if I said 20 cents a kilowatt hour to you, generally speaking, this is rough math, this is not perfect math, but it's rough. You're $2 per gallon equivalent. So when you start to think about, and your point about affordability is a really salient point, actually EVs reduce the operating costs for the vast majority of people with those, particularly when we start to think about secondary markets where these vehicles can show up, i.e. used car sales, where the most of that value has been depreciated, and by the time you get this car, you actually can go do that. Your also point is another valid one, which is what's the cost of putting in that charging to offset the operational benefits. Those are the types of things we need to work with you, all of you, right, in those communities. Nobody has an extra $2,000 sitting in their pocket to go put in charging, as an example. But they get a bunch of benefits. They save $2 a gallon every time they drive, if they could do that. So how do we think about innovative financing ways? How do we think about innovative ways of approaching those things so we absolutely ensure the affordability of these? That's one of the cool things, again, about EVs is the affordability, once it gets in your hand, actually is pretty clear. Even at 45 cents a kilowatt hour, it's $4.50 a gallon equivalent. In California, gas is $5.40, right? So there is even a benefit in there. So we have to work through this. We have to optimize the system. We're not perfect right now. In fact, what we said is part of the job right now is to break the system and then go fix it. Break the system, learn from it, get smarter about it. We're not optimized. We're 1 year old. We're walking. We're like little babies. We get better at it over time.
Just wanted to touch on the affordability point too, just from my own life experience, because I think it is, I don't know, it's my life. So interesting to me. But I would challenge all of you to do a very depressing task, and that is to grab every receipt from a gas station over the course of 1 year and add them together. I did that math before I bought my first EV. Folks, it was over $5,000. That is not little money. That's a lot of money. And then the flip side is, my bolts, well, my first one came with a level 1 charger included. My second bolt came with a interchangeable level 1, level 2 included, which is great. Plus an extra $1,000 to help cover electrician fees for installing that level 2 charger at home. Also great. Also, there are so many level 2, and don't let Tony hear this, there are so many free level 2 charging stations. I rarely pay to charge my car. Over the course of a calendar year, I have gone from $5,000 in fuel to probably less than $200. And to me, that's a remarkable cost savings, and that's part of the conversation and the re-education. Yeah, so that's it. We probably have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, my name is Mike McFall. I'm state representative for House District 8. The issue I don't have a problem with DTE saying that they have the capacity. The problem I have is reliability. In my district, the power goes out even on sunny days. We have issues, and it'll be for multiple days. I don't know how long a car will hold a charge, but I know one of my colleagues in the Ann Arbor area actually could not charge his car during one of these outages. So can you tell me what you guys are doing to expand on reliability?
It is the thing that we are all focused on at the company. So, and for quite a while, but more so, I would say since a lot of the weather patterns and things have changed. I think things have gotten a lot rougher, and we have to think differently about how we're going to make the grid more robust. So there's four parts to the plan that we're investing in. One, the big cities in our territory are all in a very antiquated system. It's a 4.8 kV system, which was built like in the 50s. It needs to move to a 13.2, which is modern, it's resilient, it has higher capacity, it has the ability to do a lot more things than what the current system has. So that's one part of the plan. The other part of the plan is automation that we need to put in place, which means basically if a node goes down, automation flips it over to another part of the system, and maybe instead of 300 customers being out, 200 are back on. So you can flip that automatically and utilize that type of a great automation. Trees are always going to be ongoing. We have to remove trees out of the right-of-ways and out of the easements with the wires, but then there are wires that are in the backyards where the owner has the easement. So we have to work with our customers directly to say we need to either remove trees or remove branches in order to keep trees out of the wires. And then the last part is literally hardening the grid, which is new poles, new cable, new cross arms, transformers, those types of things in those areas that need it. And we have seen when we do that, the system is more resilient. It just needs to be more. And the question becomes, do you do that over 15 years, or is there opportunity to get investment? I look at the federal investment that goes to a lot of different things. Could it be put towards infrastructure, electrical infrastructure? Because we're not the only ones that are dealing with this. There's every utility in the country is working through this because we're all in the same boat in a lot of different ways. So that's the 4-point plan right now, and that's what we're driving towards every day.
And as a guy who's been impacted 8 times this year by that, it's a pretty salient point to me. The other side of it, and I'm actually in the process of being one of the test drivers of this for a reason, the EVs store energy, right? So a typical Lyric or Laser is something on the order of 100 kilowatt hours in the battery. The Silverado's 200 kilowatt hours. On average, I'm using somewhere between 20 and 30 kilowatt hours on a daily basis. If we all sort of sub-circuit it down, you probably could do it on 10 kilowatt hours. So that Silverado is 20 days worth of energy. So we often think about the opposite. The power goes out, how am I going to charge? Now the EV becomes, wow, for me, it could be an asset for me to turn the power back on in my house to a certain degree as we move forward. And we've made some announcements, Ford's made some announcements, you're gonna see more and more of that. Those are little energy distributed storage systems. How can we tap into them as we move forward? So I hear your point, I'm not deflecting it by any stretch, but at the same time, again, we often think about what happens if I can't charge. The reality is you can actually discharge into your house and use that as an asset as you move forward.
Awesome. We have time for one more question.
Thank you. William Miller, County Commissioner, Oakland County, Farmington Hills. I'm not against EVs. My concern is road funding.
Yes.
If we're taking away from the fuel tax, how do we make sure that our roads are good so the EVs can drive on the roads? Especially like, I don't mind paying for gas because my brothers and sisters actually build the roads. So it goes into that, but when you hear like when dollars going like, how do we get that tax back? So you get it back today already, and you actually get more from me as an EV driver, more from the commissioner as an EV driver than you would get from me paying for gasoline.
Not to me, to the roads.
To the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we pay an additional fee, an EV fee, and dedicated to the roads in lieu of loss of revenue associated with the gas tax for the road. So.
So we pay an additional fee at the point of registration for having an electric vehicle. But then also, I would recommend anyone who has questions about road funding to talk to folks at this table right in front of me or in the legislature. There are a few of them. Because in my day job, I work in the legislature, and this is something that we do desperately need to talk about. And it's not just because of EVs, it is because cars over the course of the last several decades have been getting much more efficient. We're very good at moving very far, very fast on very low fuel compared to where we were in 1950. So that whole formula is unsustainable and desperately needs revision. And so if anyone wants to pressure anyone, this table right here. But with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank my panelists. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. If anyone has additional questions on any issue related to EVs, please find us during lunch. But yeah, I'll turn this back over. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Johnson, thank you for your leadership and that very much entertaining panel. Well, anytime you're introducing a new technology, there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of elephants in the room that need to be addressed, and as you heard, there's some questions, but we're America, we can work through anything, and we'll develop the technology to address those concerns over time. We don't have them right now, but we'll work towards them, and we're grateful to have that panel there give us a lot of practical insights on EVs and the benefits that can come from them, and legislators can work towards funding those things so we can fund our roads, and those issues are coming along. Listen, I want to thank also my Board of Commissioners who've come here today. We've had 10 members of my board have come here today, and we're really grateful for them attending. Shows their commitment to regionalism and trying to work together to solve common problems. They could rise. Commissioner Grott is here. Commissioner Haw, my vice chairman. Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Sarah Lucido. Commissioner Nard. Commissioner Perna, Commissioner Sabatini, Commissioner Van Sickle, Commissioner Wallish, and Commissioner Song. We're going to have a special board meeting after this, so can you all hold back later? No, just joking, but thank you. Also here from Macomb, the delegation from Macomb County, we also have a Representative Joseph Aragona and earlier Commissioner, or State Representative Aragona and State Representative Meltzer for our first-time commissioners in Macomb. So we're glad to have their support, too, our local officials paying attention to what we're all talking about today. And I also want to just take an executive privilege to introduce MAC's Executive Director, Mr. Curry. Please come up. Steve Curry from MAC, how are you? Good to see you. You know, we were just talking about road funding in Act 51, and I know that's going to be a topic at the MAC conference coming up, so why don't you say a brief comment?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Don. My name's Steve Curry, the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Counties. We're the association that represents all 83 counties in the state, 619 county commissioners. We appreciate the work that you folks are doing down here at the Tri-County Summit. Obviously, we take a lot of this back to our organization. You folks have always been supporting our organization and well represented on our board. There are 4 board members here. I just want to recognize them real quick. Director Wallace, Director Lucido, both from Macomb County, Director Miller from Oakland County, and then Second Vice President Doeh from Wayne County. So Southeast Michigan is well recommended. Well represented on our board, and if there are issues that do come up in your counties and you'd like for us to work on them, please feel free to approach one of them, talk to one of our staff. We have Dina Bosworth, our Director of Government Affairs, and Samantha Gibson, one of our Government Affairs associates here. Your counties are also well represented on our committee. So thank you for having us. Thank you for letting us sponsor this today, and appreciate all the work you folks are doing. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Steve. Steve and their legislative team are our voice in Lansing. We can't be there every day, and they're our voice. They're our contacts for many issues that we can resolve through their office, taking advantage of them, which are all free by our dues that we pay. So please take advantage of them. One more housekeeping note. Before we get, the House staff here is going to take you by table to lunch. So if you could stand by, they'll come by and take you to introduce your table to lunch. So please stand by for that, and bon appetit.
So give a round of applause if you enjoyed this morning's sessions and this entire conference. I want to thank everyone for coming out. As I stated earlier, as we've done this, we've had lessons learned, and one of the lessons learned was to have impactful, powerful sessions in the morning, have lunch, and then let everyone have the rest of their day. So after your lunch, you're free to leave, but we have a few more things we want to say before you leave. Again, I just want to thank everyone for coming to Wayne County for this awesome 3rd Tri-County Summit that we've put on for you. I hope it was important and impactful, and that the issues that we discussed today are something that we can work collaboratively to make sure that we're being the best for the Tri-County region. As you saw, the issues were complex, they're difficult, but that's what county government does. We take on the complex and the difficult issues to make life better for our residents. I will reiterate the fact that everyone please be an advocate for the survey, the Broadband survey. Make sure everyone in your city, township, community is aware of it and that they're filling them out. Make sure that you continue to uplift the issue of behavioral health, juvenile health. There are resources available. We have to make sure that we get those resources to our community because it's so very important. And then the EV conversation was very enlightening to me as we continue on that path. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for leading that. Very enlightful. And now I'll take a quick joke for a moment. Earlier today, Commissioner Chairman Woodward said he used to be the youngest member on his commission. I used to be the youngest on mine too. So, so time certainly goes by and we get a little gray, and but the issues that are important to county government are important to our citizens, are so important to us, and that's why we have these the Tri-County Summit. So again, I just want to thank everyone for coming. We are going to have a few words from Chair Brown and Chair Woodward as we work next year. If you have some ideas and suggestions that you would like for us to tackle next year, please let us know, because this is important conversation that should and will continue. So again, thank you for coming to Wayne County, and I'll turn it over to Chair Brown.
Thank you all for coming. We're all leaders in common areas, and all for your ideas, a couple of all of ours, we're going to do some great things. The behavioral health is certainly a substantial issue that we have to deal with. It's a big issue. It's complex, it's involved. We're going to go forward, and what we're going to do as a result of this discussion is launch a behavioral mental health task force with the associates of the county. So we're going to work together with all of you again to move forward on that agenda item. And we're also going to be advocating along those lines,
because it's pretty clear from the discussion had today and previous discussions that we need a common system of communicating amongst mental health care and healthcare providers of what the mental state is. A lot of people know what the medical conditions are of people, or they know what their legal issues are when they get pulled over by the police. What we should probably work to developing is a lean system for mental health, so that when people have an issue or they come across a law enforcement or they go to a hospital, they also got a background of what mental health issues they may be facing, either through some type of system, through a secure system at that. So those are some of the goals and ideas that we have about going forward, but that's some of the areas that we want to work towards in the coming year, and working together with Chair Woodward and Alisha Bell and all of you, of course, we're going to get there. And so working with all of our partners at the state and federal level, we're going to accomplish and get over some of these challenges we're facing and get on to new horizons. So we're very glad to have you all here. And Mr. Woodward, give the floor to you.
I'll close it out. It's great to be here in Wayne County.
Welcome.
If you haven't walked the boardwalk or out there, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you, Wayne County Chair Bell, for helping hosting us. This has been great. Everyone who works with me knows that I love a very clear action step things to go. And so, I think the conversations throughout the entire day were incredible. As we look at the EV thing and talking to one of my colleagues that helped spearhead the Charging into the Future task force, and looking for the work that led to today needs to continue. And I think there's a few things that came to light, and without actually locking down the specific details, but as a region where the largest number of people who drive the vehicles in Michigan are, figuring out how we together help support the build out of the infrastructure, specifically around the public space, the public infrastructure that's necessary. All of us have represent areas that have public property, but we also have our schools and we have other public agencies. How do we utilize those areas to help support the build out of the EV infrastructure? I think it's absolutely critical that we think about convening all of our public leaders in this space to figure out how do we do this and do it together as a plan? And related to that, tap into some of the unprecedented federal dollars to help build out those that infrastructure that can make EVs be successful here in Metro Detroit. And then lastly, and the thing that probably was most compelling, this education component, particularly as ambassadors, as public leaders. I think Commissioner Johnson said it best, that how do we demystify the myths that are out there? How do we communicate what it really is? And what's all of our roles in making sure that this is a successful endeavor that not only strengthens our economy, protects our environment, but also keeps America moving. So, I think we'll be tackling those things together as a result of this conference as well. So with that, thank you. Another round of applause to a great summit.
Thank you, staff.
Yep. And we would be remiss. This doesn't happen without the most amazing staff in all of Michigan. And so a lot of them are scattered there, but many are scattered around. So the staff of all of our boards, please stand, because we want to applaud. Please stand, all of you. Please stand up, all the staff. Please stand up. Some of you are not standing, but those who are, we know this would not be possible for the countless hours on the details of the logistics to make sure this happens. And I think there's no doubt that this is among the best that we've ever had. So it's in tribute and completely because of the staff that we all have. So one more round of applause, and be safe.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.